You ever pre-order something and kind of just forget about it for a little bit, and then it comes in and you're like, why did I get 3 Buff Saga deck boxes again? What's up, folks? Today we're taking a look at the brand new set, Night of Zero, or something along those lines. Night of Rebirth? Nights of Rebirth, it was plural. But yes, today we have, of course, the new release. You have it just behind me, actually. The brand new set just came out here in Japan, Divine Set 8. And as always, we're going to take a look at my first impressions of the set, going through the card list that went up a couple days ago. This is actually, I think, one of the first times that I'm actually recording it technically on the day of release instead of like the day or two before. Over the next couple days, I will also be uploading both a box opening of this set itself, as well as also the new master deck sets that just came out. These are impossible to find. I'm so glad I pre-ordered one of each of them, because especially the Michiru one is like literally the cards inside are basically worth double the price of the actual product, if not more. So they're basically impossible to find because they sold out immediately everywhere. So in English, if you haven't pre-ordered, I really recommend pre-ordering as fast as possible. And we'll talk about the exclusive cards in those two as well. As always, this is going to be a long video that you can basically enjoy as if it were a podcast. So feel free to just tab out and listen. I'll be going through each of the nations and also be leaving timestamps in the description for each of the nations and sections that we talk about. So feel free to click on the ones that you want to hear the most. Without any further ado, let's get started with the set analysis, the first impressions of the set. So as always, we're going to go through things in the order of nations. So first we'll have Dragon Empire, then Dark States, then Brandt Gate, then Keter, then Stoicheia, then Lyrical, and then also we have the new Bang Dream collab in this set as well, which is basically 2 new decks, or 1 updated deck and 1 new deck essentially. There aren't any nationless cards in the set this time around. It's basically all belonging to the actual nation, so we don't have anything like the Dragon Tree stuff from last time. I will immediately just feature the high rarity stuff. So we do have a DSR in this set, which is the Kagetsu Vaserug. So for some reason, Vaserug has like, 5 million different secrets, but that wasn't enough. And so they added a DSR to it as well. And we also have a few more other beautiful cards. First things first, we have the MyGO, very nice alt arts. I still haven't watched MyGO, but because of the 8th anniversary of actual Bang Dream, I've been playing like actual Bang Dream all the time. So I know all the songs, I just don't know the characters, which is kind of funny. And then also, of course, Ave Mujica also is in this one too. So you see, these are like the secret rare versions, or not even secrets, they're like the EXS rarities that you get like a couple per case, I think. So they're not that expensive. They're honestly pretty easy to get, especially if you want to just like get them for collection purposes. Then of course the FFRs, some of them look absolutely fantastic as always. Youthberg, especially the new Revolve form, bangs in this rarity. So does the Magnolia, I'd say too. And then after that, of course, we have most importantly the biggest chase cards of the set, which are the secret rares. So Veil Dragon has a secret rare that is, I think, one of the cheapest ones. Blindmire Nexus, I think, goes for, like, from what I saw in shops this morning, was going for between like 500 to 600 bucks. This one doesn't go for that much, maybe like 100 or so. This is the new Mythisk. And then Youthberg, of course, goes for a good bit, like 500, 600, 700-ish as well, similar as the Blindmire range. I mean, it is Youthberg. The Bird for Rezael, not as much, maybe like 10 or like 100k, sorry, not 100k, 10k yen or so, so about 100 bucks or so. Magnolia, didn't really see too much, so I'm not sure too much about her price, but the biggest hit, the biggest win you can pull is of course the Kairi. She goes for over 1,000 bucks for the secret rare, so definitely a big chase card for a lot of people. And then of course, if you want to get things in a, a nice little tidy rarity, you have the silver rares, which is one of my personal favorite rarities. But enough rarity talk, let's get into the first nation, which is Dragon Empire, one of the sets, like this set's least rated nations. It's quite cheap in pre-orders as well, but even on release, you could get all cards of Dragon Empire Nation 4 times for about 30 bucks, including what is a generic right here too. So the new deck introduced in this set is Veil Dragon. This is basically the modern version of Vortex Dragon from back in the day. So Veil basically says that at the start of the main phase, he energy charges 3, and then you can not once per turn energy blast 3 to choose an opponent's rear guard and retire it. And if you didn't retire, then for that turn, he gets plus 5k power. And if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, gets plus 10k instead of 5k. So basically, you're able to constantly use this effect to like first wipe out any rears your opponent may have, and then the more you keep using it, the more the Vanguard also gets stronger. The reason why you want to use it more times is because of the last ability, which is at the end of the ability attack. If this turn you used 6 or more energy for the cost of this unit's ability, you can almost one stand him, you lose it 2 drives for the turn, But then if you also Soul Blast the card with the same name as himself, he gains a drive. So it's kind of like Dayusha a little bit, where Dayusha had the option to, bind the Goyusha to gain a drive on his 0 drive, like second Vanguard swing, except Goyusha, like Dayusha only was able to do that once per game. This can do it more than that. So it's really not too bad, I think. You on average will use 6 energy, and that might sound like a lot because going first on turn 3, you're only at 9 energy. But you do, you energy charge from the main phase effect, which also happens even on turn 3 because you go into ride phase, right into it, then you enter the main phase, and then you go to your, another +3 energy. So using this ability twice per turn is honestly not that hard. And so because of that, I think it's pretty good. If your opponent has a full board, which the current meta does have quite a few decks like Astashion, which is the Stoicheia starter deck that just has a bunch of tokens, basically always has a full board, then most of the energy will be used on the retire, so the Vanguard will not get as big. So I feel like if this release in the previous meta where Rezael and Levidrus were roaming around, it would have been a bit better because there, and also I guess with Buff Sagara as well, because with Verlord you can't target it, so because you can't retire, you gain the power. With Rezael and Levidrus, they wipe out their own field most of the time with all their effects and whatnot, so there you get more power too. But now in this meta, there's a lot more board-based decks, so therefore you're going to be mostly just wiping stuff out, which is also good, but that kind of forces you to bank on checking strong triggers with this instead. So that does make it a little bit different. He also has a support triple rare, which is the Drag Ritter Bishara. So this guy, when you call him, you can reveal the Vilbale from your right deck, or if you have it as your Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, retire an opponent's rear guard, and if you didn't, you draw 1. So this way you get to also do this on turn 2, which is pretty good because in this current, I feel like in the Vanguard in the last year or two, obviously turn 1, turn 2 has been a lot more important, and therefore people do commit more rears early. So having ways to answer your opponent's aggressive turns is also really good, especially if they play something down thinking it's going to survive, right? Sometimes Buff Sagara players will call down their Yugma Shad and being like, okay, I'm going to ditch an arm, draw 2 cards, I'm going to bash with it on turn 2. But then something like this takes it out and it's like, oh, well, now they don't have an attacker for their next turn. They don't have a restanding rear guard, and they wasted one of their precious 4 copies on that turn as well. Maybe they do need that aggro, but I feel like that retire effect is actually very, very good for turn 2. And then also the other effect is when your Vilbale uses 3 energy, or for every 3 energy your Vilbale's act effect used this turn, he gets plus 5k, which is pretty good because that basically means you're a 20k base attacker, which means it's not just the Vanguard column that's strong in this deck, it's also the supporting rear guards, which I think is honestly quite good. And finally, we have the Drag Ritter Nirumine. So she's a generic that says when you call her to rear counterblast 1, look at top 7, find a grade 3 or greater, reveal it, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. If you didn't reveal, you countercharge 1. So it's basically the same as the Burning Horn Dragon for Overlord, except it works with any grade 3, which is really good. It also works with order cards, which I think is just basically very strong. And every time your opponent's, not every time, but if your opponent's rear guard was retired or bound this turn, then this gets plus 5k. So it's a 13k booster that's also grade 3 searcher. So in certain decks, I think this will be quite good, especially in decks that don't have dedicated strong back row, right? I feel like a lot of decks like Overlord, for example, has Halb, but then a lot of other decks just play Shenri basically just to have good boosters. But this kind of gives you another option as well, especially in decks where the grade 3s are very important, right? Gandiva just recently got back Steergona to 2. This can help you find it as well, right? So I feel like this might see some play in certain decks. Right now, it feels like it's one of those generic cards that you probably want to pick up and just have because I feel like Varga might want to use this, although the CB is a little bit tough, but it's how badly do you want to find your Deckset, right? I think the CB might be the kind of the point that makes it a little bit tough, but sometimes if you have to bet your life on finding the Deckset just to win the next turn, then that's what it is, right? But speaking of Deckset, we do have a Varga support card, this double red that I feel like everyone forgot existed. It's the eluding dragon. So if your Vanguard's a Varga, this gets plus 10k power, plus 10k shield on both players' turns, which is pretty good just for that. It's a relatively good attacker. It's the same as the previous grade 3 that can't be retired. I forget his name, but the one that also gets plus 10k. But the 10k shield is pretty valid. And then when he is retired by your Varga's ability from your rear, you soul blast 1 to add him back to hand. So you can use him as a 23k attacker. And then instead of being unretirable, he soul blast 1 goes to hand and you can guard with him the next turn. So that can be not so bad. I mean, I feel like sometimes run into shield issues in this deck. And it's also nice because you draw so many cards in Varga, drawing into a 10k shield is really not that bad. So I think it's honestly quite okay. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to see play in Varga. I get what they're trying to do with it, but I feel like this would have been better if it released a little bit earlier, if that makes sense. So far we have a bunch of cards. Like we have a new deck that's like decent, but you know, then we have a couple cards that are like, not really doing too great. What do we have next? We have the Lethal Salt Dragon. So this guy's art is really cool, drawn by Kairu DX Deluxe. So when he attacks a Vanguard, if your Vanguard is the, I think it's like what, Flame Tribe thingamajig, like Crimson Red thingamajig, it's like the Gandiva basically. You Soul Blast 1, and then you choose an opponent's rear guard retired. If you didn't, you draw 1. And then if you have 5 or more face down bind zone, this also gets plus 5k shield. It's like a 10k shield grade 2 that also is like a Soul Blast 1 on Vanguard. Oh no, sorry. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard. Oh. Yeah, I was like, this card seems really good, and then I realized it's an on-hit? Man, that's kind of lame. I actually feel like the first time I read this, I didn't see the on-hit. I guess it's cool hit pressure, but I feel like in Gandiva, don't you mostly want to just be using your multi-attack creating rear guard? So I don't really know if this will be played for as cool as it looks. Then Vilbale also has a double rare. This one says if you have Vilbale grade 3 or greater, then this gets the following abilities. When placed from hand on rear, you can energy charge 3. For that turn, the energy generator, you cannot use your energy generator's act effect, so you can't do the EB9 to draw 1, sorry, EB7 to draw 1, but you can do it before you call this card, so do keep that in mind. When he boosts, he gets plus 5k, and then if your Vanguard is, or if you boost the Vilbale, then at the end of the battle, you Soul Blast 1 and stand him, so he will, even if your Vilbale doesn't gain too much power, he will kind of like back him up a little bit as a 13k booster, which is not too bad. The on-call energy blast or energy charge 3 is also really good because it just helps you use Vilbale a lot. You're not going to be EB7ing for the energy generator much in this deck just because you want to be using it on this effect as much as possible, but it's still very nice that this generates that 3. Gryandra got really good support this set. This new Micah grade 1 says if you have a grade 3 or greater Gurai Vanguard at the end of the battle that it attacked, you can almost draw 1. If your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, if in this battle phase your units from Soul have not been placed on rear, then you can put himself and the other rear guard in the same column as this unit, retire them both, and then choose a Andorra and a Gurai from your Soul and call them one of each to the same column. For that turn, give them plus 5k, and at the end of the turn they both go to Soul. So if you don't remember what Gryandra does, right, this guy basically says that you rest him and then he chooses the Gry and the Andra from Soul, calls them to rear, and then while he's rested, after the Andra attacks, he puts the Gry and the Andra both in the Soul to stand the Vanguard and give the front row plus 10k. And the Gryandra themselves are like, you know, they basically, this guy rests himself start of battle phase and then gives your Andra plus 10k and allows it to attack from back row. The Andra gets like another plus 5k as well. So this one basically during your battle phase, being able to, you know, on your Vanguard's attack CB1 and call them back out to make that extra attack is really, really nice. And the fact that they go back to Soul is also cool too. So overall, this really good support card for Gryandra. I feel like if you want to just like play a budget Dragon Empire deck, I feel like this will definitely be a very good contender. Then there's this like new little engine in this set as well. So this is the grade 2 that basically says that if you played the specific order this turn, she gets plus 5k. And the order is this one. So this order is a grade 2 that says Energy Blast 2, look at top 5 of your deck, find a, is it Senjo? Yeah. How do you even translate Senjo? It's like I think I've heard fairy as a translation or like noble. So let's just call them Senjo and Senning. But basically you Energy Blast 2, look at top 5 for a Senjo normal unit and then call it to rear and shuffle your deck. So she's a Senjo, and then I think there was one more as well. So he's a Senning, or maybe that was all, but she you can basically call her out. And so if you play the order, she gets 5k. And then during like once per turn, and then about your grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacked, if this turn your unit has not stood by an ability, you can count almost 1 and choose one of your front row Diodos and retire it to stand this unit. So Diodo is this guy who says when placed on rear count +1, look for your deck for this order basically, and then reveal add it to your hand. And when he attacks a grade 3 or greater, then if you have a Senjo that is boosting him, then for that battle gets plus 5k. Sorry, there was one more Senjo. This is grade 1. This is the Jami. When she boosts and the attack hits a Vanguard, you Energy Blast 3 to retire an opponent's rear guard. So basically you have like 2 targets. You have the Jami as well as the Leikai. So this is basically like a little package of Dragon Empire that you can play in decks that don't have multi-attacks that will give you a 4th attack because you can restand this girl who's basically like a 15k attacker on her own. Everything is also like rare and common, so I feel like it's a pretty cool little engine that you can now run in a bunch of decks like Triumph Dragon and whatnot that don't have a 4th attack. So I really don't think it's that bad. So it's quite interesting. It's just a rare as well, so it's pretty easy to get your hands on. Varga had a little bit of other support. This guy is like a back row rearguard circle grade 1 during your turn. If Vanguard is in Malworm state, then if you don't have another rearguard in the same column with this name in your same column basically, then this unit doesn't get retired by your or by any card effects basically, so including of course Varga's, and gets plus 5k. So basically a 13k booster that isn't retirable, which is not really the best, I guess. It's not really something that the deck wanted. This guy is also the Shahid, is also a Gandiva support. So during your battle phase, if another unit was placed in the same column as this unit or stood in the same column as this unit, then if your Vanguard is a Flame Scarlet, then for that turn, this gets plus 5k. So it's basically just like a grade 1, it's a 13k for the Gandiva restanders essentially. This guy's also Gry support, so it's a grade 3 that says if your Vanguard's a Gry, count must 1, retire this, search your deck for a Gry and an Andra, and then choose up to 2. So basically choose the Gry and the Andra and just call them back to rear. It's like it says like choose up to 2 grade 2 or lower unit cards with Gry and Andra in their names. So basically just call those two. So it's kind of nice that you can kind of respawn them for the 1 CB. Then we have the Azharu. This is Vilbale support when this is, or this is not support, this is the ride line, sorry. This is the grade 0, this like Conroe looking dragon. And then this grade 1 is the grade 1. So when it's ridden over by the Azharu, you energy blast 3 to draw 1 and give your Vanguard plus 5k for the turn, which is quite good because 15k Vanguard swings are quite annoying to block on turn 2. And then he basically says when he's ridden over by the Vilbale, for that turn, he changes his original auto abilities cost to be 1 CB less. So essentially the restand effect becomes free for the first turn, which is quite huge. And then basically every nation got one of these grade 1s that's like, when placed from rear, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, choose a normal unit that is not a Sentinel from your drop, put it to bot deck, and if you did for that turn, this gets plus 2k power. I guess it's kind of cool that like everything got what Secondal was. Every nation has a Secondal now. So it's like if you really need to kind of extend your plays of something in certain decks, this could be an option, but otherwise it's kind of like a pack filler. And the other common that every nation kind of got was this one, which is like when you got rid of this from hand, CB1, choose a trigger unit that is not an over trigger from your drop and guard with it. It's actually not the worst. It's kind of cool in being able to reuse your more thick shield cards. So I think also this works with your soul fronts too. So if you like guard with the soul front, goes to soul, you pay the soul, and then you can guard with the CB1 and then call that back out and then put that back into the soul too. Just it costs a CB, which a lot of decks cannot afford to use for something like that. So overall, if like Dragon Empire is like not the worst, I really feel like Vilbale has some potential just because it's a restanding Dragon Empire deck that again has pretty decent synergy with, I guess it's not the best synergy with Drag Veda, because like technically in the first Vanguard swing, if you check Drag Veda, you can ignore the restand effect and then use it on the second swing. But if you like restand it once and attack with a second one with only 0 drives or with just the 1 drive, and then you drag Veda, you still just have the 1 drive. So it's not like the triple driving buff Sagara restanding, it's not as good. But I feel like because it also has a rearguard that builds good power, I feel like overall like you're doing pretty good as just like a 4 attack like resending Vanguard pressure deck. Obviously not as good as Varga, but considering what it does and how much, you know, pinpoint retire it can do, I think it is a pretty cool way to like bring back Vortex Dragon. But overall, I do think like the main highlights of this set for Dragon Empire are like basically Vilbale and Gryhandra. Everything else feels a little bit like the little engine, the Senjo Sennin. I said Sendai at first. Senjo Sennin engine seems pretty cool too. And then I think this generic is also like potentially something to watch out for in the future, especially next that maybe won't need as much CB. I feel like that could definitely be a pretty big thing too, just because she can also find orders. I think that is also very strong. She can even find you Regulus pieces if it's a grade 3. So that's also something to really keep in mind. So I think for me, I don't know, Dragon Empire kind of just like lands an average. Nothing shines too crazily, but I feel like there's overall cool stuff happening. So I guess kind of like a 3 out of 5 for me. I don't think I'm going to give it a too high of a rating, but I don't think it deserves to be put down to like a 2 out of 5. I think we already expect a certain nation to be there in this set. So Dragon Empire gets a 3 out of 5. It's like just about average. Up next is Dark States though, which is definitely one of the winners of this set, I would say. And I mean, Suo being on the pack cover and also having a Michiru Master Deck Set release, I think definitely complements that too. So the main features, I guess, of this set for for Dark States are of course Blangmire Nexus, the big feature, and of course the Jeweled support too. So Blangmire Nexus is a brand brand new form of Blankmire that is kind of similar to the Fated and Destined Kings, but a bit like, it's not exactly like Rasets, but it's not exactly like the Destined Kings in that you can technically run this in the ride line, unlike Varga, but it also kind of benefits you from playing the old one in the ride deck because you don't have to fill your main deck with gunk that you're not going to like use for any costs or whatever, unlike the Rezel and Levy Dress. So his effect basically says that this is treated as the original Fated One of Zero Blankmire, and during your turn, if you have a card with the same name as him in your soul, he inherits the divine skill of that unit and gives all your front row rear guards plus 5k. So keep in mind, doesn't give it to himself, just to your front row rear guards, but that's already pretty good. So basically, as long as you can soul charge the original Blankmire, you'll be able to inherit it. And this is Dark States, which means that, you know, just your ride line is able to soul charge, although Blankmire's ride line is not very good, so do keep that in mind. Although I do think one of the cards in the set does make the Blankmire ride line a little bit more redeemable for sure. And then the second effect is basically the old on attack Blankmire effect, but now changed to work in the main phase instead. So this allows you to either bind 4 cards from soul face down, or just bind a Blankmire named card from your soul, and then your opponent chooses 2 of their rear guards and binds them face down, and then for every 2 cards in your bind zone, this gets plus 5k for that turn, and then you choose a card from your face down bind zone and you reveal it. If it's a grade 3 or lower, you call it, and if you didn't reveal one, then you may draw 1 instead. So this effect is really good for multiple reasons. First one is that it's now an act, so this way your opponent doesn't get a chance to intercept with their front rows before they get bound away. They also changed the like optional draw that Blankmire had into just call something from bind zone, which is really good because that optional draw sometimes led to deck out, and being able to call something from your face down bind means that you now are more happy to bind your key rear guards that you soul charge, like Vade Rock, that can then also, you know, you use this, put the Vade Rock into your bind, then you call it out of the bind, Vade Rock ability, call something from soul, and now you have a full board basically. And then on top of that, like being able to soul blast the Blankmire name is actually quite huge, because especially when you get to like turn 5 and late game with this deck, you don't really want to keep soul charging because you're going to deck yourself out. And because of that, because you're afraid of decking yourself out, sometimes you don't really get to afford to pay Blankmire's cost anymore. And so for that reason, being able to soul, you know, just choose the one Blankmire that, you know, if you're running the original one in the ride line, you're going to be persona riding this, so you'll always have one. And then if you run this in the ride deck, then you're running 3 of the original or 4 of the original in the main deck. So that means you're soul charging it pretty easily. So that way you have the one Blankmire for cost also pretty consistently. So in the late game especially, I feel like the one Blankmire soul blast or like bind cost is actually very, very good. So overall, it feels like just a strict upgrade. You're running more grade 3s in the deck, because I think you're also a bit more rewarded for running the Colossus now. The only thing is that because the power gain happens in main phase, that also means that like before you were power gaining in the battle phase. So that meant that you could attack with a Colossi, bind 2 Colossi, get 2 extra cards in bind to get 5k more power. Now you'll have to do that. Like if you run the original Blankmire in the ride line, do that on turn 3, and then turn 4, you just like do the main phase 1 and that's it. And I do think that like having the divine skill on top of like the extra 5k buff to the front row rear guards is also quite good. It pairs well with Alchemist. It also works well with Zamug, who has the crit pressure and whatnot. So overall, Blankmire Nexus is a really good card. I want to immediately talk about the Elaborate Wizard. This guy's a grade 1 that when called from hand to rear, so cannot work when you call it from bind zone. You look at the top 2 cards of your deck, you choose one, put it to soul, and put the other one to the bottom of the deck. I feel like people forget about this ability pretty easily. It's technically generic, which is also pretty important to point out, that this is a selective soul charge of looking at top 2. And then at the end of the battle, this boosted. If you have a Vanguard that is a Blankmire grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1 and choose a normal unit from your soul, add it to hand, and then you bind this face down. So once again, this is another card that removes itself from field, which we already have quite a few. So this is also kind of cool into like Varga and like other retire matchups and whatnot. And also I guess like Artisaria expect to be pretty popular in this set too. But the most important thing is that this allows you to get back perfect guards from your soul. And one of the worst things about Blankmire's ride line is that any perfect guards you soul charge basically had to go into the soul from the grade 1 of the ride line. And that was so annoying because you just like soul charge 2 or 3 PGs and you're like, well, I guess I'm not perfect guarding this game. Thanks to this guy, now you can. So honestly, I think the CB in this deck does get a little bit tough because you were using it for Zamug, you were using it for Alchemist, and now you're also using it for the Wizard. And I feel like you might reduce the amount of copies of Alchemist that you run, do less 4 attack turns, do more 3 attack turns where you can swing Vanguard first to have the extra pressure, and then that way you can use that CB to just like not run out of PGs, not run out of resources, not run out of persona rides, not run out of like other key cards. Like, you know, this being able to go to bind means that you can also call it out of bind technically for this effect too if you need it. So just for that, I feel like the wizard is honestly pretty good. And you go through the deck pretty fast in this deck too. So it's like, I feel like you'll be able to find whatever pieces you want to add quite consistently. And this might open up builds quite a bit too. So it does cost a CB, which is pretty tough for the deck, but I do think that it's a very good use of CB. So for that reason, I think the wizard is really good. Then the last triple rare is the Didos Agur, sorry. So this is a new Regard for Drejeweled. So this one says when you play it on Regard Circle, if your Vanguard is a Drejeweled, grade 3 or greater, Energy Blast 3, draw 1. So that's already a very nice buff. And once per turn, when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater, if you have 4 more different grades in your soul, for that turn it gets plus 10k power. So of course, much like the Rockagur, attack with this first before getting rid of your soul, because this will get the plus 10k for the whole turn, and you'll be able to keep it for the last effect, which says when your Drejeweled Vanguard soul blasts 4 or more at the same time for its cost, Karamas 1 and stand this. The big difference between this and Rockagur is that this now works on turn 3 going first, which means that if you have 2 of this guy, you can do 5 attacks on turn 3 going first, and that kind of gives you a reason to use Drejeweled's power minus effect on the first grade 3 turn, which in the past you were kind of like, is it really worth it? I don't really know. Now it kind of is. So overall, this card is crazy. Like, I think this one card, you just put this into the Drejeweled Master deck set and you're kind of just done. So for that reason, I really think this is a super good upgrade for Drejeweled. And if you're picking up the Master deck set, this one right here, 100% pick it up. It's super, super important in my opinion. There's a couple more Drejeweled support cards that we can take a look at now. There's this really creepy looking demon dude. This is the Demon Mare. When placed on a rear, if your right deck has a Drejeweled grade 3, you can reveal it. If you did, if your Vanguard is a Drejeweled grade 3 or greater, cost 1, and then look at top 7 for a, what is this trait again? Oh, this is like the Jewel Dragon. This is literally, this like searches the jewel dragons essentially. So you get yourself a Rockagur. You can also find the new grade, the new grade 2 as well. If I remember correctly, this doesn't find Ignis though. Yeah, Ignis is a different trait for some reason. So there is a world where you still want to run this guy, the Draco Kid, instead. So this basically finds one of those, reveals that it's to your hand and shuffles your deck. And if you didn't add to hand, you soul charge 2. I don't really know if this will be played over the Draco Kid from before. I feel like the Draco Kid being able to find Ignis is more important because Ignis is still your win con. And then I think we had one more Drejeweled card, if I'm not mistaken. I'll take a look at the remaining Blangmire stuff soon too, because there is a little bit more too. Okay, it might be crazier. I swear there was one more Drejeweled card, but just off of this guy alone, it's already very good. There's also, of course, a bunch of Blangmire support. We have this crazy looking grade 2 that says if your Vanguard is a grade 3 graded Blangmire and you have 4 or more face down bind zone, this card gains the following abilities: cannot be chosen by your opponent's effects, gains boost, and gets plus 5k shield, plus 5k power. So it's a 15k attacker, 10k shield. That also is a 15k boost, which is not too bad. You can basically, like, instead of running the grade 2 that Soul Boss 1 searches the order that gives things boost, you can run this instead. The big thing of that order was that it could give Vaderock the boost ability, which was like, would make 70k columns. So this just gets boost on its own, and it's like not really easily removable, which is kind of cool. So it might see some play. I'm not super sold on it. The 10k shield is honestly quite valuable in this format, so I could see this being used for that reason. Basically every other archetype for Darkseid's got support in this set too. We got Direful Dolls, we got Ave Mujica. It's like basically everything except for Unica that got support last set is in here. Doll's got this double rare that says when placed from hand on rear, look at top 5 of your deck, find a Direful Doll name card, put it to soul and shuffle your deck. So free setup is nice. And then during your turn, when your other rear guard is bound, if your Vanguard is a Direful Doll grade 3 or greater, you can bind this and then choose 2 of your units and give them plus 5k for the turn. That's actually very good. Not only is this something you can guard with and it's a 10k shield that self binds, so it also means that you can boost with this first and then attack with something that self binds, and then this will immediately go into the bind zone and then give 2 of your other things plus 5k power. Your Vanguard is usually pretty low too, and you can give it to the Vanguard too, which is honestly not that bad. So this card seems quite good actually for dolls. There is one more doll in here as well. This is the Artea. This one's the Consorata. Artea's art is really cool. When she boosts your Vanguard's a Direful Doll, grade 3 or greater, you can choose a Direful Doll from your drop, put it to soul. For that battle, it gets plus 5k. End of the battle, she gets bound. So this lets you reuse any of your dolls that you want to put to soul, and then you can bind them afterwards as well, which is not too bad. It's also 13k attacker, or slash booster, sorry, not attacker, and then also bind, so that becomes a 10k shield. Not too bad. I feel like dolls actually got quite a lot of good little cards in this set. And then we have the Kerberos, which is the Ave Mujica support. So this is a pretty good card from what I remember. I love the art of it. In Soul, when your Ave Mujica is placed during your ride phase, if you don't have a rear guard with the same name as this, then you can soul bust any card that isn't this from your soul to call this from soul. So basically, I guess it's important to note that this won't work when you would like masks superior ride because that's not in the ride phase. And then when this is put to soul by your Ave Mujica's effect, you choose a unit, give it plus 5k for the turn, and then if you have 2 or more types of triggers in your bind zone, you can energy blast 3 to draw a card as well. So if you don't remember, Ave Mujica basically like puts your rear guards into soul for its cost in order to, you know, do its own effect. The whole gimmick of the triggers in bind zone and nullifying your opponent's stuff. It's a pretty cool gimmick overall that I feel like I wish they explored more. So I never played the deck, but I do feel like it's pretty decent in theory. It's cards like this that I wish were added to Dear Day sooner so I could mess around with these decks that I never played. So as someone that doesn't really know Ave Mujica too well, I'm going to say this is decent, or at least like it's a card that comes out for free, right? It feels like it has to be somewhat good. This is technically a generic card that says when it attacks the Vanguard, if Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, you choose a different named rearguard from this unit and put it to soul. For that turn, she gets plus 5k. So this lets you tuck something into soul that you can then call out by some effect. She's also 15k attacker. It's actually not too bad, especially for just like a generic rare. This is another Ave Mujica support. That's when you call from hand. If you have a Ave Mujica in your ride deck, you can reveal it. Or if it is your Vanguard, you can must 1. Search your deck for a trigger unit that is not a over trigger. Reveal it, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So you thin out one of your triggers, but you get to then immediately guard with it and then use it for Ave Mujica's cost. This is also, I have a bunch of books stacked behind me, which is the yearly Bushiroad. Monthly Bushiroad ended, but they make a yearly Bushiroad now, which has support. Basically, it's like a grade 3 and a grade 1 for order-based dark states. And so they release a new order. This one says you choose a card from drop, and then you can put this card and that card into the soul. So basically it allows you to just like set up a bunch of stuff in your soul, which is, I mean, doesn't plus, but it works well in like order-based decks. So specific, I feel like this is just support for that promo, so I wouldn't think too much of it. This Blankmire card was pretty decent too. The Gavant Dragon, sorry, Carve Out. The katakana confused me. When placed on rear, if your Vanguard is a Blankmire, then you look at the top card of your deck. You can put it to top of deck or soul. If you put it to soul for that turn, it gets plus 5k. And if you have 4 or more face down bind, it gets plus 10k instead. 23k attacker that you can also technically like leave on top is also pretty strong. I feel like the fact that you can technically like use a Moog, you know, deck thin a little bit, then use something like this, go like, ooh, crit on top. Okay, let me leave that on top. Don't gain power. Obviously, then it's just a 13k vanilla, but you have a bit of front row gain from Blankmire Nexus that kind of maybe makes this okay. Probably won't be run, but I think it's an interesting card at the very least. I think if you're really playing a lot of filtering cards, the top deck look can be a lot more threatening than you think. So I'd like to give this card a chance at least. Then we have a few generic pieces here and there. This is the CB1 call a non-OT trigger from drop to guard with. This one is when called to rear from hand, soul charge 1. Depending on what you soul charged or what the grade was, you do the following. If it's a grade 1 or lower, this gains boost and 5k, so 18k booster. If it's a grade 2 or greater, until the end of your opponent's next turn, this unit gains intercept and 5k shield. It's like not the worst. It's like, not sure what this would go into, but it's not the worst. Like, especially in like decks that want a turbo soul charge or maybe chaos. I don't know, like feels like this could be a one of in chaos that just like helps you build the soul you need and then still does something on top of that. This is when you guard with it. If this turn you played a blitz order, soul boss 1, it gets 10k shield, so 15k shield for a soul is not too bad. And about this attack, you put it to soul to give a rearguard plus 5k for the turn. I think we had this card before. I feel like we've had a very similar rearguard in the past, and I probably during that time also said it's decent because technically attacking with something, going to soul, and then, you know, buffing a rearguard that might be a resending rearguard is not the worst. And then this is the returning card that basically lets you like gain 2k and return a non-sentinel normal unit from your drop to bot deck. This is a back row, a rearguard that when your Vanguard is attacked, you can retire it to give your Vanguard plus 5k for the battle. And then this guy is a Blankmire card as well that basically says that if you have 4 or more face down bind zone, this gets 5k shield. If you have 8 or more face down bind zone, it gets 10k shield, so 15k shield. Not really something you'd play. I think overall, there's a lot of like decent commons in this. There's a lot more generic commons than I thought, which I'm quite surprised about. And overall, I think the support for like Ave Mujica and Direful Dolls is like pretty decent. The Jewel support's really good. The Blankmire support is really nice. I don't think it's like earth-shattering levels of amazing, but overall, I feel like everything supported in Dark States is overall pretty decent, and I can't really like nitpick about commons too much. Do we give Dark States a 5 out of 5? What do you guys think? I feel like it's pretty close. I do think it's honestly like a very high quality level of support in the set. So I feel like I'm willing to give it. I feel like it's going to come back and bite me if I like, you know, we have a WGP literally tomorrow and then Blankmire like ends up being on every single team and then and then Jeweled as well, and I just like ended up being wrong. There's a lot of really like decks that got just a little bit of good support in this set that definitely puts them up in the ranks because Buff Saga got restricted. So I'll give Darkstates a 5 out of 5. I'll be a bit generous today. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing things correctly. 5 out of 5 for Darkstates. I think overall Blankmire and Jewel definitely carry, and a lot of other archetypes got pretty good support too. What got not so good support, unfortunately, is Brandt Gate. Or like the support is decent, but it feels like it's maybe a little late on a lot of departments, but there's definitely a lot of cool little cards here and there, so let's break it down. So Brandt Gate supported a lot of archetypes. We have heroes, we have Vezru, of course, we have Welstra, we have Rotovisor, we have Orphist, which also got a grade 1 World Cup finally as a promo though, but you know, still congrats. And then, yeah, I think that's it, but it's a lot of archetypes in this one. So Heroes got a couple interesting cards. There's a new grade 3 that basically says during your turn, if you have a different named hero grade 3 in your soul from her, she gets plus 5k, so 18k Vanguard during your turn. At the end of the battle, she attack, count plus 1, and put 2 hero rearguards to soul, and then choose a different named grade 3 from her that is scouted, ride it as stand for that turn, drive -1 to it, and if you did, you scout this into your base, and then at the end of the turn, the scouted card, or by this effect, will go back on the Vanguard circle written as rest. So she basically tags herself out into the previous hero grade 3. So you want to scout the original grade 3, and then she will attack CB1, put 2 rears into soul, ride the new one, basically revolve form with the old grade 3, let you attack with that with 1 drive, and then she will go back onto the Vanguard circle. So they're like a tag team now. There's also this grade 2 that says when you place them on rear, if a Vanguard's a hero, if this turn you have not played a base in your order zone, you can choose a card that is a hero from your hand and put it into your, or scout it into your base, search your deck or drop for a base, reveal it and put it to the order zone, and then shuffle your deck if you search your deck. So until now, you had the Aegis, but now they also revealed a new shop promo. I can probably actually pull that up right now. So there's this new shop promo that's coming out next month in Japan. There's like a grade 1 that you can rest to search a hero from your drop that you don't have in your order zone yet, and you scout it. And then if you have 4 more bases set, you can put this stood order into your soul to choose a grade 2 or lower normal unit that is a hero from your drop, add it to your hand. And if you have a hero Vanguard for that turn, it's next time you pay its cost to become CB1 less. So that kind of works well with her because she costs CB1 to tag out into the other grade 3. So you get to reduce that, and this gets to search the other base. So I don't know what split of bases you're going to play, but now you can have more than 4, which is pretty cool. And then when you attack the grade 3, for each different base you have in your order zone, this gets plus 5k. So if you have both of those, he's going to be a 20k attacker. For now, you'd have to play die base for that to be a thing, but starting from June, if you have the second order, then you can have that as well. It's like it sounds like a decent deck, but overall I'm not like super convinced. I think that was it. Sorry, there was one more hero card. This one, when this is scouted, if Vanguard's a hero, Soul Blast 1, choose a different named hero from this card from your drop, and then put it into, or scout it into one of your bases. It doesn't really do anything else, which is kind of annoying. Like you just put this into the order zone, it's Soul Boss 1 to put something else into order zone, and that's it. It doesn't do anything on the field, so I feel like it's not really going to see that much use. The grade 3 and the grade 2 are definitely decent though. Vezru support, we have the Garz Orms. This guy is the back row attacker basically. So when placed during battle phase, if your Vanguard is Vezru, you cannot blast 1 until the end of your opponent's next turn. This unit cannot be chosen by opponent's card effects and can attack from the back row. It only works on the turn it's placed by Vezru's ability, basically. So keep in mind that if he stays on the board from the back row, next turn you'll have to put him to the front for him to attack because you won't be able to boost or anything, and he only has that back row attack effect only when he's played during the battle phase. And then during your turn, if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, this gets plus 5k. And if you played a normal order this turn, it gets 15k instead. So especially going second, this is not too bad because this will be a 25k attacker from the back. And of course, like you do have the order from last set that basically like what gives extra power to all things called by effects. So therefore this guy will get pretty swole just from that alone. But there is a new order in this set, which is this one. It basically says that if you have a Vezru Vanguard, you can play it, choose a opponent's rearguard, retire it, and then your Vanguard gets the ability for the rest of the turn, which says once per turn, when your Mythic Rearguard is played by your Vanguard's ability, then for that turn, its original auto cost becomes counterblast 1 less. So that basically means that this guy, you can not CB for its back row attack effect. The problem is that Vaserug has so much CB already. It's like the Wolf can CB 1 or EB3 to draw, Vaserug CBs 1 to call stuff, your previous order CB'd 1 to play itself. This doesn't CB, which is nice, but then that means you're sacrificing the power from the golden order. So I'm like, which one is it, right? It does feel like it's a little bit like this deck still feels pretty glass cannon even with these additions, and it still feels like you have to run Bobble Mine and it doesn't really have anything else it can do without that. So that's kind of like what my point of concern is. So I think we'll have to keep waiting for more Mythisks to come out, because so far the best Mythisk is the actual Keter Sanctuary one that's in Rezael. And then we have Welstra support. This guy says, when placed on rear, if your Vanguard is a Blitz, you can choose a set order from your drop and put it to bot deck or to soul. So essentially this is kind of like a way to, like, if you draw into too many of your orders early, you can use them for ride cost, or you can also, of course, you know, use the dog, I guess, but you can use them as a ride cost and then put them to bot deck and then search them with like Freiheit and stuff, which I guess is like fine. But most importantly, the second effect is when your Divine Skill possessing Welstra named Vanguard attacks, Soul Boss 1 retire this to choose one of your products in order zone and operate it, which is very strong. Soul Boss 1 self-retire is really not too bad. The self-retire is a little bit like, I wish this went to Soul. Obviously it would have been maybe too good for that, because this costs Soul Boss 1, you know, so they definitely don't want you to have that. So it's kind of like a better Freiheit in that sense, in terms of actual cost efficiency. But because it doesn't search, you're still going to be running Freiheit most likely, just to find your like Persona Ride copies and whatnot. So overall, I feel like it is quite strong. Just having an extra operation does mean that you can also, like, if you have enough soul, you can basically like swing with Freiheit, you know, do the, or like swing with like whichever of the rearguard operators. And then when your Vanguard swings, you're now able to operate the Audiante with the Vanguard effect to deal the 1 damage. And then you can still use this to operate the like Freischütz maximum to bounce something and call the Freischütz as well on the Vanguard swing. So you wouldn't have been able to do that until now, but now you can, which I think is quite good. And of course, if you have 2 of him, you can use both as long as you have enough soul, which is also very, very good. So it also invites some new attack patterns, and just like in general, you can change up the build quite a bit too. So I feel like this one card will make Welstra pop up a little bit more again, more than it did for the rest of this like season so far. And like maybe the buff Saga hit recently does mean that this will have a fighting chance, I hope. We also have this guy, which says when placed on rear, if your Vanguard's a Blitz, and if you have a grade 2 or you don't have a grade 2 product in your order zone, you can choose a card from hand and put it to your soul, search your deck for a grade 2 product and reveal it, add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. So this lets you search out your Lubelzahl, which is of course one of the best products in the entire deck. And if you have 2 or more products in your order zone, this gets plus 5k shield. So this is kind of like, instead of paying CB to search a product or a Welstra, you're now paying a card from hand, which can be a soul cost that you can use for the Varnest, this is this guy's name, or the Freiheit, if you are using Freiheit. And then this way you get soul cost and you get your Lubelzahl as well. It's not bad. I do like how cost efficient it is, because sometimes you do just have stuff in hand that's just kind of clogging it up a little bit, but Welstra doesn't plus that crazily to have that much expendable hands. So I feel like the CB is a little bit of a lighter cost, but to be fair, Freiheit also had to CB 1 and discard a card. So at the end of the day, instead of discarding one, you're putting a card from hand to soul. The more I look at this, the more I'm convinced by it, but then you have to remember that Freiheit gives you a free set, which is also pretty good and lets you cheat out the maximum into your order zone as well. It's a good card. It's really not a bad card, but it feels like it's really fighting for the same deck space that Freiheit is using. And it's like, is it really that good? Is it really replacing it? Feels a bit of a tough ask. So Welstra did get 2 pretty good cards. Rotovisor got some pretty decent ones too. This guy looks really sick. Is a 15k attacker / 10k shield if you have 2 or more arenas in your order zone. Don't forget there is a shop tournament promo arena. Is there? Did I dream that? Please tell me I didn't. Please tell me I didn't dream that there's a new arena. Please tell me I didn't dream there's a new arena. Please tell me it's not just a dream. Okay, it's not just a dream, Jesus Christ. I generally It's not even shop promo. It's from Divine Set 5. Okay. The promo was this guy, this grade 1. Whew, okay. This deck is so cope. I feel like I generally don't know which cards I dreamed up and which ones are actually real. But anyway, he's basically in drop. If your Vanguard's a Rotovisor, if you don't have him on field, you Energy Blast 2 and rest one of your arenas to call him to rear. So the arenas normally they rest if your stuff hits, but now you get to automatically rest something. And do you know why that's important? Because you have this guy who says when he stood by Rotovisor, Soul Blast 1, stand any number of arenas in your order zone. And if you stood 3 or more, you can CB1 to give all front row guards plus 10k. You are literally just setting up the 3 arenas rested in case your stuff doesn't hit to be able to use this guy. I'm pretty sure that's like the only use of that effect. We have the other new card, which is the rare. This guy looks so sick. I can't believe it. Kind of want to get an FR just because it looks so dope. When you place it on rear, if Vanguard's a Rotovisor, you choose one of the units, give it 5k for the turn, which is not bad considering that you do restand stuff. And when you guard with it, if Vanguard's a Rotovisor, if you have 2 or more arenas in order zone, Energy Blast 2, this gets plus 10k shield. Not sure if that's the most efficient use of energy in a deck that's not exactly spoiled for energy. Look at everything that's using energy. This is using energy. This is using energy. And then like your orders are using energy. Like, where is this energy coming from? Where is this energy coming from? I don't understand. I mean, you can technically gain it from this, but you can also countercharge from it, right? Where's that energy coming from? Anyway, I digress. I do think Rotovisor is cool, but the two, like I think this card is actually quite good. It's basically like a Combine Rusher, which is like a lot of decks are getting Combine Rusher these days. Or if it's got 2 support cards and also got a new shop promo, grade 1 world order that's really, really good. The grade 1 says when placed from hand to rear, if your world is Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, you search your deck for a world card, discard it, shuffle your deck, and for that turn it gets plus 2k. It's pretty good. I do think that's actually like nice that you can just kind of thin out your worlds from deck. And then in drop, if your Vanguard's an Orphist, you have to Energy Blast 2 and bind this to then make a Shadow Army token as well. So main phase Shadow Army token makers are good. That's something that Artisaria is able to do now as well, which makes her also very nice. And then this guy is, if your Vanguard's an Orphist, Combos 1, Soul Boss 1, retire this to make it 2 Shadow Army tokens. Bit of an expensive cost. CB1, it's like this one's cool because energy and like bind from drop to make a token. It's like nothing. But this thing is like CB1, Soul Boss 1. It's like, who in this economy, bro, with these tariffs? It's freaking Trump tariff.card, dude. What is going on? So yeah, the winner is definitely this double rare as well as the new world order. If you don't know what the new world order does, you should join my Discord because we always post the translations of all the new cards before even the official account posts them sometimes. So make sure you join it, link in description. Anyway, we have a generic order. CB1, you shuffle your deck first and foremost, which is yes, relevant. And then you declare a grade 1, 2, or 3, and then reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You add all cards with that declared grade to your hand from the top 3, and then you discard the rest. So, is this useful in something? It's kind of a funny card. I feel like there's something you could use this in. I feel like there's something where you just like run a bunch of cards of the same grade. Is this Vaserug support? Like you declare grade 2, mill all your mythisks, and then it's like anything else that's stuck in your deck just gets yeeted out, and then you're able to or you add them all to hand, they're all extra shield, and then you mill your PGs and stuff, I guess. Or maybe just you deck thin everything. You declare grade 1, add all your PGs to hand, ditch all the grade 2s and 3s, and it's just grade 2s basically. That's actually, if it got CB, that'd actually be a kind of funny card. This is like worth to keep an eye on. This is like not the worst card. Also because Ella de Glema can play this for free. This is also an Ella de Glema support, question mark? Like, I feel like you could also play this in Ella de Glema and then just like, but it's not a set order, it's a normal order. Never mind. Why are you not a set order? Never mind. Okay, forget about it. I got too excited. We have this guy. When stood by unit's ability, Energy Blast 3 for that turn. This unit's rear guard's in the same column as this unit, get plus 5k. Not too bad, I guess. It's like whole column buff. If you have like a back row attacker, I guess it could be something. Is this Rotovisor support? Question mark. For every 2 types of orders in your set orders in your order zones, gets plus 5k shield. Induction 511. Interesting. This is the guard from drop guy. This, if he hits Energy Blast 3, choose an order card in your drop and add it back to your hand. Could be kind of cool with Freezing Wave, I guess. This is like pressure for Freezing Wave, but 3 energy on hit. Do you have the space for it? It's a cool cat though. This is one of those like the return to deck guys. And then this one is like if your set order is put from your order zone to soul or drop, you can retire this to draw 1. Soul or drop So what? This is Orphist, Masks support. I guess this is also Eva support. You can technically henceforth into Soul retire this draw 1. I don't really see a world where I would want to be doing that, but interesting. And then finally, this one is when called from hand to rear. If your order zone has 2 or more different set orders, Soul Charge 1 or Energy Charge 1. Oh my god, it's Ella the Glimmer support. That's crazy. It's a cool looking cat thing. I like it. Yeah, it really feels like they gave a bunch of support for a bunch of different things, but it feels like a lot of those decks wanted something else. Like Orphis wanted the grade 1 world. It finally got it, which is nice, but wish it was in the set instead of being a promo. Wellstar got a really good card. This is really good, but this one's like questionable. Vazework feels like it's still 2CB heavy, and the new cards don't really feel like they're pushing it as much. And heroes are like decent, but is that really enough to be like the main sell? I don't know. I feel like it's a, like, when you look at the fact that they, you know, the other recent decks, like you look at Blangmire, you look at freaking, I mean, even Levidrus and Rezael, and I mean, Buff Saga is an exception. Like, Buff Saga is an exception. We have to accept that. But when you look at that and then you look at heroes, you're like, is this really, did they really cook? It's just a revolve form, right? So, I don't know. It's a bit mean, but I think Brandt Gate for me gets a 2 out of 5. It just feels like there's nothing really too exciting. It's just like they try to patch up a bunch of these decks, but then you look at what Jeweled got and it's just like, is this really a patch? It feels a little bit mid. So 2 out of 5 for Brandt Gate this time. It's a bit of a shame because I feel like Brandt Gate's always either a 5 out of 5 or like a 2 out of 5. It feels like it never hits the average mark. It's always just like kind of super good or super disappointing, and that's just kind of where we are this set as well. Fingers crossed that next set is a 5 out of 5 because that's a Daikaiser sweat. The Daikaiser set, sorry, not sweat. I'd be sweating if it's not a good Daikaiser set, I swear to God. Anyway, this is going to be one of the main features though, which is of course Keter Sanctuary, bro. Youthberg bros were so back. Rezael actually got a pretty good new card as well. The dog deck got a pretty good card. Hexa Orb exists, question mark, and just in general, a lot of interesting cards for Keter. There's like funny looking Not Sergaon and everything. Just in general, they definitely did a lot of cool stuff for Keter this set, and you know, makes sense. It's the Youthberg set. So let's not waste any more time and talk about Youthberg, but we should talk about the new rad line. We have a new grade 0 that actually doesn't matter. The new grade 1 Youth looks really cool. When he's written over by the new grade 2 Youth, which means you can still run the old grade 0, you Soul Blast 1, look at top 5 of your deck, choose up to 1 card and reveal it. If it's a Youthberg, add it to your hand. If it's a grade 2 or lower unit card, call it to rear and shuffle your deck. This is very good. It's not synergistic with Tith's Fault because she needs to be called by a not unit's ability effect. So this will not activate Tith's Fault, so let's keep that in mind. But it's still pretty good because it adds Youthbergs to hand, which means not only does it add Revolve forms, it also adds Persona Ride, and you also get to call something otherwise. So I feel like it's a strict upgrade over the previous ride line. The grade 2 is also a huge upgrade and looks amazing. I mean, just look at this Dimitri Fire Emblem, bro. It's great. When this is written over by a Revolve Dress possessing ability unit, you Energy Blast 3 and choose a grade 2 or greater unit card from your drop and add it back to your hand. So again, this is a huge upgrade. The previous ride line needed to CB1 to get a Revolve form or a Youthberg, I forget which one it was, back to your hand. This now doesn't even need to specify that much. It's just grade 2 or greater. Was it grade 2 or greater for the previous one too? Maybe it was actually, but it's still good. It allows you to reuse good attackers. It allows you to, you know, get back your Tith's Fault. But overall, I mean, it's just nice just because it's able to, like, you're able to ditch or like bricks and like grade 3s early to then get them back with the ride line, and it doesn't cost CB, which is so good. And then the new grade 3 is by far the most kind of like controversial one because of the fact it doesn't filter anymore. So it still has Revolve Dress. If you're a new player, this is Youthberg's gimmick. It says end of battle attacked. You get to choose a Revolve form from your hand, ride it as stand, and then it loses 2 drive for the turn. But now the Youthberg Skyfall Arms Rebuild, as it's called, allows you to also say Candlemost 1, choose a Revolve form from your drop, and then ride it as stand and give it -2 drive. So the original Youthberg wasn't able to actually Revolve form from drop. It was strictly only from hand. But now if you don't have one in hand, you can CB1 and Revolve form from drop, which means you can also discard your Revolve forms for ride cost as well. And then when this is written over in the battle phase, you can discard a card from hand, choose your Vanguard, and for that turn, you change its drive to 1. And then when this card would ride over a Revolve form, then the written over card, instead of going to Soul, goes to your bind zone. So until now, you'd Revolt form into something, and then every Revolve form says at the end of the turn, ride back into the Revolve Dress possessing Youthberg at the end of the turn. So that way you can keep redoing this effect, and you keep building Soul as well. now you don't build soul anymore in exchange for binding stuff. And why is that? Well, that's because of the brand new Revolve form, which is the Exist, the yellow, the Pittsburgh. Good job, we finally did it. When you Revolve dress into this, you do all the following abilities. Energy Blast 3, stand one of your rear guards. For that turn, give all front row units plus 10k. If you have a Revolve form card in your bind zone, give plus 20k to front row instead. And if you have a card with the same name as this unit in your bind zone, for that turn, this gets a crit. And then in the turn, you choose a Revolve dress from your soul and ride it as rest. So this would let you go back into this, and normally this would go to soul. But now, because of this guy, it instead goes into the bind zone, which means that you can build 2 different exists in the bind, or 1 in bind zone, 1 that you get into in the Vanguard circle. You have a same name copy, you get the crit, you get the 20k, you get the rear guard restand. It's all good. So basically, this deck now does 5 attacks as long as you go into this specific Revolve form. It can give up to 20k to your front row, which is also very strong because that means all of your attacks are hitting like really hard. But the problem is that the original Youthberg Grade 3 allowed you to ditch a card from hand to look at top 3 and either add a Revolve form or a Youthberg. I think it was just Revolve form to hand, or call something. I think it was, I can't remember exactly what it was. It's been a while since I used Youthberg. Was it grade 2 or lower? I feel like it call anything, but it was only top 3. But the thing is that was still really good because you got to filter the deck, and it also meant that it had really good synergy with cards that discard. So or not discard, but cards that work when discarded. And a lot of the previous support for Youthberg was like, if discarded, do something. So you lose that. And you still have the like when ridden over discard 1 to give drive. So it works with some cards, but there are some cards that also don't necessarily work when discarded in battle phase, or like have restrictions when something happens in battle phase. So it's like you still keep the discard for the drive check effect, but the problem is that you don't get to filter, which is like, especially in a deck that now has the drive on all the Revolve forms and stuff, just feels a little bit like rough. So when you choose which grade 3 you want to run in your ride deck, it's going to be, do you want to filter, or do you want to have the ability to Revolve dress from drop and also be able to have a drive on all of your things and not have to run Sequana? You can also run Sequana to build soul and then not have to worry about it too. The problem is also that because this needs to have another copy of itself in the bind zone, that means that if you play against Shoujo Doji, which recently got Izusawa back to 2 in Japan, that also means that basically this thing gets countered by Shoujo Doji because they can just remove the Revolve form from your bind zone and then you kind of just cry. And that kind of begs the question. It's like, is it worth to play this as just your only Revolve form, right? The 5 attacks and huge power in the crit are really, really good, but you're not really gaining too much hand. This becomes a bit of a glass cannon. Is it more worth to do 4 attacks and just run the full blast instead? But then you've got plussing thanks to Tempest. You only do 4 attacks, but everything's got 15k power to front row instead of 20, but it's still 15. You still have the crit on Vanguard, you're still doing the drive. So I think that it does beg the question. I think the only thing that doesn't ask any questions is the new ride line. Like the new ride line, the 2 and the 1 are 100% included into any single Youthberg deck, regardless of what you run as the grade 3s. But the rest, I think, is, I mean, to me, it's a cool thing. I think it's cool that you have to think about which like lineup of Youthbergs you want to play. And I think the WGP tomorrow will definitely show us which of the Youthbergs is actually worth playing as well. But that Youthberg got a couple other rear guards that unfortunately do not see too much use in, like, for the better or worse. We have Dedu from Fire Emblem 3 Houses. He says during your turn, if you have a roll from in your bind zone, he gets plus 5k. So you basically only get to, so it's like he doesn't get plus 5k until turn 4, which is kind of strange. And when he stood by your Youthberg's effect, so specifically by him, you can almost draw 1 for that turn when this would attack. It forces your opponent to guard with 2 cards at the same time from hand, which is called Battle Dooring. I think the Battle Door and draw 1 for CB1 is honestly not too bad. I just wish the 5k gain wasn't so late. Like, that's the only thing that's quite confusing. Same goes for this guy, the Dao Derek, as he was called in the anime. When called to rear, Calmost 1, look at top 5 for Youthberg, reveal it, add to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So if you don't find a Youthberg, you CB1 for nothing. You don't recover the CB, which is just so weird, right? They printed Burning Horn before. That not only looks at top 7 instead of 5, also refunds the CB. You also have like the great 1 generic for Dragon Empire in the same set. Also, you know, refunds the CB. This doesn't, because it's just a rare apparently. And when this attacks, if Vanguard's a Youthberg, this gets plus 5k. So for the turn, which means that if you restand it, you'll have the 5k twice basically. But I feel like just the fact that the search effect doesn't recover the CB is just so bad. Like that makes this card pretty sad, unfortunately. So I do think overall the Youthbergs themselves are really good. The supporting rears, I like this guy, not so much this guy, unfortunately. So leaves a little bit to be desired. There's also this dog that basically says if you have a revolve form in your bind zone, this lets you intercept with it, and intercept from back row and gets plus 2k. Again, only works on turn 4. Or I guess after your turn 3 is done, you can intercept on your opponent's side, so it's not too bad, I guess. Outside of Youthberg though, Rezlael got a bird, so Sergaon got restricted, cannot be used in Rezlael anymore, but this bird says you call it CB1, look at top 7 for a Rezlael and add it to your hand, and if you didn't, countercharge 1. Literally the same nation. How is this card on the same page? Like, this one's a triple rare, that's why it refunds, wow. And then the somewhat confusing text of the second effect is very, very strong, but the wording is quite weird. So let me read you out the Japanese wording. It's like, when this attacks, if your Vanguard's a Rezlael grade 3 or greater, for that battle, this gains plus 5k. But if your Rezlael Vanguard played a rearguard by its effect this turn and you earn 4 or more damage, this gets plus 10k instead of 5. And then it says full stop. The next point of text is plus 10k power. Do plus 10k power, and if it's the 5th battle of the turn, your opponent cannot guard with sentinels from hand. So the initial impression I had is that this gains plus 10k twice, but then there's also an argument that no, it just gains the plus 10k once, and then if you gave that plus 10k, then on the 5th battle, this will do the sentinel effect. So it's kind of like if you have 4 more damage and it got the plus 10k, then you can do the 5th attack sentinel restrict. It seems like that is the conclusion of this, because because of this full stop, it kind of makes it seem like you give 5k or 10k and then give another 10k and then give the sentinel restrict. But I'm assuming they don't want you sentinel restricting your opponent that early, but I feel like this will have a lot of judge calls. The English wording of this is better. The English wording specifically says if. The Japanese one doesn't for some reason, which is really weird. Overall, it's a really good card. The only thing is that this is another rearguard that you now want to keep on board. So both Gavilia stays on board and this stays on board, which means that Artisaria is really happy about that because she can lock either one of them. Until now, Rezlael was able to kind of duck away its grade 2, use Cadwalla, use the Nobaris, they disappear, you don't have a front row to lock anymore. But now with this, if you want to sentinel restrict, it's like, well, if you want to search Rezlael, right? If you want to, find your Vitas, if you don't have one already, this will be a pretty important searcher, especially in a deck that has countercharge. But the sentinel restrict definitely feels like it's going to be quite interesting. So overall, I think it's a good card. Definitely going to be played as a 4 of. It's just a very easy auto include, I think, because you lost the Sergaon. You can just put Painkiller instead, basically, instead of the Sergaon. You're paying Soul now, but you also have a very strong new attacker, which I think is quite good. I don't think Rezlael got any other crazy support this set. This is basically the only card, but makes sense. I mean, Rezlael's been supported so much. Soul Rayron got support. This one says when called to rear during battle phase, if your Vanguard is a Soul Rayron, count +1 and standard rear guard. So this works both with Soul Rayron original and masks. And this turn, if your Soul Rayron Vanguard revealed a normal unit by its effect, this gets plus 5k. So it's pretty decent, I guess, just because it's it connects to another attack and it also is a decent number itself. Again, I didn't really play Soul Rayron Mass. I feel like I really should give this deck a chance, especially now that we got this and whatnot. The dog deck got a new dog and a new Hound Raiser as well. So this is Hinami. So when you're behind Vanguard High Beast attacks, if your Vanguard is a Hound Raiser for that turn, she gets plus 5k. If your one is a grade 3 or greater, she chooses one of your other rear guards and gives it plus 5k for the turn. So that's also pretty good. She basically makes your weakest attack, which is the one behind your Vanguard, have a bit more power. And it also then allows you to dish out a bit more power to other things, which I feel like a little bit of power is all this deck really lacked. And then when she's boosted by a High Beast and a battle that she attacked, if your Vanguard is a Hound Raiser, you retire her and then choose a Hound Raiser rear guard. And then until the end of your opponent's next turn, it cannot be chosen by your opponent's effect and does not retire. So it's really big protection effect, which I think is also quite good. There's a new dog. This one says when it attacks from behind the Vanguard, if your Vanguard is a Hound Raiser, count +1. Choose opponent's grade 1 or lower rear guard, retire it. For that turn, this gets plus 5k power. And at the end of the turn, this goes to Soul. This dog, I think, is the big highlight. Being able to retire and get power and go to Soul is just a lot of resources in one card, which I think is pretty damn good. So I feel like they make a pretty good duo. Overall, a very welcome addition to that deck. And I had a feeling the deck would get support. That's why for the YouTube channel members, I didn't make a POV fight of this deck yet, because I was looking at Divine Set 1, they gave support for like Direful Dolls the very next set. So I was like, okay. Or like Veleno and stuff got like really good double rare in set 2. So I was like, I feel it's going to happen again this time around. And you know, it sure as hell did. Secondly, another dog, when this boosts and the attack hits a Vanguard, retire it to choose opponent's, choose one of your rear guards and give it 5k for the turn. I don't think that's going to see any use, but it is a dog. Sorry, there was one more Solreron card. This is when it boosts, if you, this turn your Solreron revealed a normal unit, then this gets 5k. End of the battle, this goes back to hand. Don't think it's gonna necessarily see play. Hexorb got a bit of support, and so did Bastion. Bastion also got like a new promo recently too, or for next month. So during your turn, if Vanguard's a Hexorb or a Sorceress, sorry, then you get to get plus 5k power. Has to be grade 3 though. And then in drop, if during your ride phase your Sorceress Vanguard was placed, Energy Blast 3, call this to rear. Look at the top card of your deck, put it on top of deck or put it to soul. If you put to soul, this will get plus 5k for the turn. So every deck is getting Combine Rusher, basically, which I think is not too bad. I mean, honestly, like having revivable rear guards is always good. I think it helps with saving cards in hand to guard with, which is also like just good economy. So some people are not too happy that a lot of decks are getting Combine Rushers. I personally speaking don't really care. I think it's overall pretty good for a lot of these decks that just like don't have as much resource generation compared to other decks. So having at least options like this, you know, as long as it's the not so good decks getting these and not the very good decks getting these, it's pretty much just okay, I think. This new bird order is kind of cool too. You can almost want to play it, and then you choose 3 normal units that are grade 1 that aren't sentinels from your drop, and you put them all to the bottom of the deck. And if you put 3, you draw 1. This is literally like CB1, recycle 3 Sergal ones and draw a card, the order, which is like maybe is a one of could see play in some specifically grindy decks. Like maybe even, I would have said Rezel if it wasn't restricted, but like going forward, if you have a deck that has access to countercharge, which Rezel did, is this card the reason why Sergal died? Like honestly, this would have been pretty decent as like a 1 or a 2 of in Rezael for the late game, but I do think this might see play as like a 1 of with Sergaon in general, just to keep generating resources. So it's not a bad order, might want to pick this up. And then Bastion has this card that's basically like cannot be retired by opponent's effects, gets plus 5k on both players' turns. If your Vanguard's a Bastion, when you guard with it, you can reveal Bastion from your ride deck, or if your Vanguard's a Bastion, it gets plus 5k shield. So doesn't really do too much, unfortunately. It's just a little power gainer with a bit of resist. And then all the other cards are basically like generic. It's like the plus 2k return a normal unit card, the guard with a non-OT trigger from drop card. So everything else is kind of just like the usual generics that every other nation has. Keter's an interesting one because I feel like right now it's a bit hard to gauge how good everything is. Youthberg feels good on paper, but will it be good in the meta if Shoujo Doji comes back? It's like, what else will be popular this meta? It's kind of hard to predict right now. I feel like obviously 5 attacks with all that power scaling and the extra crit is really good, but there is a world where this deck is a bit too glass cannon that it just needs to go first and needs to win fast. And if it doesn't, it just kind of crumbles. And I feel like we already have quite a few decks in the format that can do that or fulfill that kind of like description. So I think Youthberg is definitely up in the air a little bit. But Rezel definitely, I think, got hit really hard losing Sergaon, but then will pick itself up thanks to the new support in the set too. And I think the dog support in this set is also pretty decent. So overall, I'll be a bit more optimistic with Keter and give it a 4 to 5. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it overall is doing good stuff that I think the nation definitely wanted to see as well. By far, one of the biggest winners of the set though is Stoicheia. Stoicheia literally like got a really good support for an archetype that also works as a generic, got really good support for Leonard and Magnolia, revamped Magnolia completely, gave support to like Flagberg as well as to Argo Sirens and just like a lot of decks. And you don't forget that one of the best decks in the current format after the restriction list is a Stoicheia starter deck with that just got announced for English, of course, which is the Estation. So Stoicheia overall is eating pretty well, I would say. So let's talk about it. So some of the Magnolia support is shared with Leonorn, which is basically just this card. So let's talk about that first. So this is the Senserite. She says when she's discarded from hand during ride phase, you can reveal Leonorn or Magnolia grade 3 from your ride deck. And if you're revealed or your Vanguard is one of them, you either Soul Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw 1. So it's like a replacement to a Gun Cycler, but you can also use Soul to pay for it, which is pretty good. And it has a drop effect that if your Vanguard is a Leonorn or a Magnolia, you choose, and your opponents are on grade 3 or greater, you choose this card and send it to the bottom of the deck, choose a rear guard. For that turn, changes base power to 15k. And if this turn you Persona Road, it becomes 20k instead. So in Leonorn, you basically can use this on any rearguard to turn it into a Luster Impact in terms of power, or you can also use it on the Rosarium itself to turn that into a 15k or 20k that will then cop, like, you know, instead of going from 8 to copy a 20. It will be a 15 or a 20 that copies a 20. So the power gain is pretty crazy. The only thing in Leonarn is that you don't persona ride until turn 5, because you have to ride Leonarn grade 3, you have to unison dress on turn 4, and you persona ride over that on turn 5. So unfortunately, it is a little bit slow in Leonarn, but it's still pretty good just for the discard effect, and just for turning your Rosarium into 15k, I think is also decent enough. In Magnolia, I'm not too sure as much because I don't really play Magnolia as much, and especially now it's going to change so much. I think that's also a big question mark. But this is definitely a good card you want to put into the Leonarn Master deck set. Not as much of like a, whoa, get this right now as it was for the Jejuled one, but still a very, very good card. And then we have the new Magnolia herself that basically is Magnolia Patriarch, that when you ride her, or him, sorry, Magnolia is actually him, you choose a, what is it, Jukakuju Mythic Beast from your drop, and you can call it, so it revives any of your like Magnolia related support rearguards, including a lot of the old ones. I literally bought one of my friends, shout out to Darren, he upgraded his rarity of his Magnolia, so I got to pick up a couple of these old Goildotes. This thing's a pretty good back row attacker, but basically revives one of those dudes. And then if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, then all of your rearguards can attack from, or sorry, can intercept them back row and get plus 5k. And if you persona roll this turn, then this also gains a drive, so for no cost, which is pretty good. And then once per turn, you can CB1 to choose as many of your rearguards as your opponent's grade, and then those rearguards can attack from the back row. So if your opponent's on grade 3, then you give your whole back row the ability to attack, so you can do 6 attacks in one turn. But if your opponent is on grade 2, then you can only choose 2. So it's still better than the old Magnolia grade 3. And you can both build this just on its own, or you can, you know, then just like focus on the extra drive effect, or you can play this with Elder, of course, because this has an on-place effect, and it's a really good turn 3 card, especially going second, that it works pretty well in conjunction with Elder too. We have the Vorjaru. This is Vorjaru, sorry, the grade 2, that when it attacks, your Vanguard is a Magnolia. Then for that battle, this gets plus 5k, and your opponent cannot intercept for that battle as well. And at the end of the turn, if your Vanguard's a Magnolia grade 3 or greater, then if this turn one of your units attack from the back row, you can put this Assault to draw a card as well. So it's also pretty good because I did hear that like a lot of things go to Soul now, and I did hear that now that you just make too much Soul in this deck maybe. So not sure how much this card will be played, but drawing a card while going to Soul is like basically Inlet Pulse. So it's definitely personalized Inlet Pulse with Shield is also pretty good. That stops your opponent from intercepting, which means that when this attacks as like just a 15k, it's gonna be a 20k because of the Patriarch, but shutting down intercept is pretty good because it forces them to commit a 15k shield to this, which is also pretty good. The Gomadoret is a in-drop. If you have a Magnolia Vanguard that is placed on your Vanguard circle, you can do one of the following abilities. The first one is if you don't have this already on field, you can call it to rear, and if your opponent's grade 3, this gets 5k for the turn. And the other effect you can do is put this to Soul, choose your Vanguard. For that turn, its original its act effect becomes counterblast 1 less. So this effect becomes CB1 less basically, which is just good for this one. I think it also works with the Magnolia masks. I think that also CB'd if I'm not mistaken. So that also is pretty good. And then also the Rajka is a rearguard Guardian Circle effect. If you have a Magnolia Vanguard, this unit can intercept and also has plus 5k shield. So it's a grade 3. And in the back row rearguard circle, when it attacks your Vanguard's a Magnolia, this gets plus 10k. So it's actually a very strong card because it's 28k base just with the Patriarch buff. So that's already pretty good. So it's asking for 20k shield. So 2 card guard on its own while being a 5k, like basically like the only non-shield cards in your deck will be the Magnolias now, or any orders you play, because this will be a grade 3 that also has shield, which is honestly pretty good. So I think this one will see play. Despite being a common, it's a very good common. They reprinted the Magnolia Rad line from the last time that they printed it, which is also pretty good to see. I mean, that way it's pretty easy to get in that sense. I think for Magnolia that was about it, but it's honestly like very, very good. Like I think that overall the Patriarch itself is good. You can combine it with a lot of the old Magnolias too. Like it works with Elder, works with Masks. Masks of Horse plays a lot of bricks in the deck, but the supporting rearguards are also quite good. So I feel like Magnolia will actually be pretty decent in this set too. Vileno got support with the Agrugias. So she says, when this card is placed outside of battle phase from hand to rearguard circle, Kalmas 1, choose a card from drop with a different name from this card, and if it's the grade equal to or lower than your Vanguard and it's a normal unit, then you can call it to rear if it's a blitz order added back to your hand. So this effect normally costs Kalmast 1, but if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater insect, so like basically if it's Vileno, you get to pay Soul Blast 1, Energy Blast 2 for this cost instead. Getting back a Blitz Order is pretty good, specifically in decks like that, but it's also pretty good because in this, in just like Stoicheia in general, you're able to get back Ghost Chase if you play it, and you're also able to revive any key rearguard. So it's like, if you want to revive a key rearguard, you can do this. It costs CB1, but it's kind of like using the same function as Alvina in a sense. So like in a Station, this could be good to revive your Mushroom, for example, too, or to revive any of your of the Blast Dragons, because they have effects when they're placed by effect as well. So I could see this being used in a Station. I can see this being used in anything that has effects, let's say when placed by effect, honestly, because it's basically just a revive option. And then it has a Rescalia specific effect. So first things first, this one says continuous if you're during your turn, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater insect, this gets plus 5k. And once per turn, if you have a Lascaria Vanguard, when it attacks, can almost one stand this unit, and if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, this gets plus 5k. So Lascaria already had a restanding rear guard, but it was grade 3 if I'm not mistaken. So now you have a grade 2 that basically just kind of like works with a bit more shield, also revives your stuff. You do CB a lot though if you use this in Lascaria, which is why they patched this first cost to not CB as well. So that way you're only CBing for the restand. I do feel like this will make Lascaria relatively decent. I've seen some people like Miltai rated this card or rated this deck in general pretty good, but I feel like people need to not sleep on the generic use of this card. This is a soft Alvina. This is a grade 2 Alvina that costs a CB. Don't sleep on it. This is going to be, I think, again, another case like Alvina where it's like release week, it's like $2, $3. Fast forward half a year later, it's like $30. Don't sleep on it. This one's very, very good. Speaking of very good generic cards, this Merdi Aiza is so good. During your turn, if you have 10 or more drop, it gets plus 5k power, so that's already very nice because it's a grade 2 attacker. And end of the battle that attacked, you can retire it, look at top 3, choose any number of them, discard them. If you discarded 2 or less, shuffle your deck. This is selective milling. It's so good, which means that if you look at top 3 and it's all triggers, you can just shuffle them back in. And if you see like, you know, trigger, normal unit, you can mill the normal units and deck thin. It's like selective milling is just so good. This is good in Zorga, this is good in Night Rose, this is good in like anything that's like drop zone based, anything that cares about number of cards in drop zone, anything that wants to like has easy revival options. Like I rate this card so well. Where did I put it? I literally, while I was like going around and buying stuff today, I just like went and bought 4 silver rare copies because I'm like, this card is so good. Like Stoicheia got really good cards this set. It's kind of crazy. Flagberg got actually a really good double rare. So when placed on rear, if your Vanguard's a Flagberg, you energy blast 3 and choose a Tear Dragon from drop and call it to rear for just 3 energy is very nice. And if your Vanguard's a Flagberg, this also gets boost, so makes your numbers a little bit more genuine, I guess. Flagberg still needs a new ride line though, so definitely asking for that as soon as possible. This is also Flagberg support that basically lets all your Tear Dragons gain intercept and plus 5k shield, all your grade 3 Tear Dragons, so that's also pretty decent to have, just as like even as a one of. And then we also have support for Argo Sirens. So this one says if when you're Tear Dragon or Mermaid stand, so whether it's your Vanguard or your rear guard, if your Vanguard is a Argo Siren, you get to put this card from rear to bottom deck to draw 1 and choose a unit, give it 5k for the turn, which is pretty nice because this lets you double dip into whichever thing that restood. So it's also, I think, honestly pretty nice to have. And she is an Argo Siren herself, which is also very important. Again, I knew this would get support. I had a feeling. This is also Argo Siren support, I believe. So this gets intercept. You have an Argo Siren Vanguard and it can intercept from the back row. And if you have the song card, like the order for Argo Sirens in your bind zone, this also gets 5k shield. So it's also not too bad. It's also an Argo Siren in name too. This is also Lascaria support. When placed on rear, if your Vanguard is Lascaria, use Soul Charge 1. And then when this boosts a Veleno grade 3 or greater, then you energy charge 1 too. It's not bad because you do energy blast 2 for this, and you also energy blast 2 for the blitz order. So the extra energy can actually be pretty useful. There is a piece of Leonorn support here that basically says that if you have 1 or more grade 1 or lower rear guards, this gets plus 5k shield. But if you have 3 or more, it gets 10k shield instead. Not really something that will be played, but still pretty okay. Actually, not really. I stopped saying that. I like to, you guys know this. You know that I'm bad at saying this card's shit. You know, I like to give hope. You know, the art is nice, right? I always want to find something good to say. I'm a pretty positive thinker. What I'm pretty positive about is these rats, dude. Look at these freaking rats, man. This card is actually a very good normal order. It's a grade 1 that doesn't have a cost, and it says choose between one of these 2 effects. First one is call a plant token. Second one is retire plant token. Look at top 3 cards of your deck. Choose a card with the same or lower grade as your Vanguard. Reveal it, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. This is like really cool. It's like, as long as you play a deck with plant tokens, which, hey, freaking Estation right now is definitely a plant token deck, you can just like convert a spare plant token that, you know, if you already put 3 to gauge, you have a spare one, you kill it, look at top 3, add like a PG to hand or something, right? It's pretty good. Like, honestly, it's pretty damn decent. I feel like maybe even Leonorn could see this used as well. The fact that it makes a plant token is not too bad either. It's not a bad order. It's really not a bad order. So overall, I think you can kind of tell by my tone that Stoicheia feels like maybe even the biggest winner so far. I feel like I have the most confidence in saying that every card in this set for Stoicheia is good, even more so than Dark States. I almost want to retract my 5 out of 5 for Dark States, but I won't. But Stoicheia definitely gets a 5 out of 5. Everything is good. Like, everything is good in this set for Stoicheia. All the decks got support. That's good support. The commons feel good. Obviously, there's a few like generic commons that every nation got in this that we can't really count too much. They reprinted the red line. I have nothing really to say. Stoicheia is a 5 out of 5. Damn, and I thought of not buying the Stoicheia playset today. Can you imagine? It was only like 50 bucks for the playset of Stoicheia today, and I was like, I don't really want it. I don't know. And now I'm like ready to go to the card shop after this and buy like 4 more copies of this, 4 more copies of this, just to like make sure I have them for like both of my decks, because this is like super generic. It's crazy. All right, Lyrical time. This is another big winner. I'm going to tell you right now, Lyrical got some really good stuff, and especially Kaidi was a big surprise that ended up shaking up everything at the very end of the reveal season. I feel like they do this quite a lot. Artisaria was like that last time too. Speaking of Artisaria, I think she got one of the best triple rares in this set, which is Luminoel. Luminoel is a grade 2 that says when you call it, you can reveal Artisaria grade 3 or greater from your hand. And if you revealed from your hand, or if your Vanguard is Artisaria, you energy blast 2, call a Shadow Army token, and for that turn it can't attack. So unfortunately it doesn't reveal from Ride deck. It's not as good as it could be, but it's still very good. This does just mean that you keep the Persona Ride in your opening mulligan as long as you have Luminoel. It's just a combo keep, right? But even from turn 3 onwards, like the turn 2 options of this are so good because you call Luminoel, she calls a token behind Vanguard. Your Vanguard column's now 25. You call a front set Yuika. You can swing with Luminoel, swing with Vanguard, swing with front set Yuika. Front set bounces Luminoel, and then Yuika bounces front set. You make the same board again, except the Luminoel now calls a token behind herself too. So you made the same board for 2 turns in a row. That's hitting for good numbers, and it's really good aggro. So overall, it just feels really, really nice. But then she has a second effect that when you guard with her, if your Vanguard's an Artisaria grade 3 or greater, you can retire 1 or more up to 2 Shadow Army tokens. And for each one you retired, this gets plus 10k shield for that battle. So it's either a 15k shield or a 25k shield. And it's really good because you run the order that makes a token, sometimes you need to get rid of the tokens just to open up spots on your field to like call your actual normal units. So by doing that, you're having a really tanky shield in this deck that wants to defend early and get to the late game because it has really good scaling. And for that reason, I think Luminoel is just like a match made in heaven. It just feels like it works really, really well. Obviously, if it could have revealed the Artisaria from Ride deck, it would have been best, but I understand why it doesn't. It's understandable. I don't think Artisaria has any other support cards in this set. I did look through it just in case, because the other main card for Lyrical in this set is the Kaidi, Astasize Live Kaidi. She now has legs. Congratulations on your legs. She says that if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, any card, regard, that was played this turn gets plus 5k, just like the grade 4 Kaidi. And when she attacks, you choose up to 2 of your regards and return them to hand. After that, you can counterblast 1 and then call up to 2 cards from your hand to empty rearguard circles. And if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, she also gets an extra drive. So it's not triple drive, it's plus 1 drive. Important point. But this already makes 5 attacks on turn 3. Whether you go first or second doesn't matter because you can swing with her, CB1, bounce your 2, like you bounce the 2, you call 2. She doesn't get the drive, but she's still doing 5 attacks on turn 3 going first, which is pretty good. And then at the end of the turn, she lets you choose a rearguard and bounce it back to hand. But if you Persona row this turn, she lets you choose 2 and bounce them to hand. This is pretty good because it dodges retire, dodges lock, and also it's like the fact that you can bounce 2 is just so good because you can reuse any of your strong on-play effects. Speaking of strong on-play effects, we have this grade 2 that says when you call it, you can reveal a mermaid grade 3 from your right deck. Spoiler alert, that's what Kairi is. And then if you did, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater mermaid, counterblast 1, look at top 7, find a mermaid normal unit that is not a sentinel or the precious item you cannot lose, which is the old order card. Reveal it, add it to your hand. If you shuffle your deck, you shuffle your deck, or I guess you search your deck, so you shuffle your deck, and then if you didn't reveal or add anything, then you countercharge 1. So this is really good because obviously this searches out a lot of your key pieces. This searches out your like important order card, but this also works in premium really well. This is like Highlander support, which is also very strong. And she has another effect, which is once per turn, when your other front row rearguard is returned to the hand by your grade 3 or greater Kaidi Vanguard's effect, you energy blast 4, and then you restand all rearguards in the same column as her. Kaidi already had a bunch of rearguards that restand by their own effects. So basically this way, you're able to bounce like a column, and then this will just restand the other column while you call out to the other column. So it's like, you can also, don't forget that with Kaidi's effect, bounce 2, but then only call 1 as well. So you don't have to call 2 if you don't want to. This will still kind of do its own effect. 4 energy might seem like a lot, but you're not really using energy in much else in this deck, I think, for the time being. So outside of generics, of course. So I think that this card is also very good. I think it's one of the like main chase triple rares too. This is also good rare. This one says when placed on rear, if your Vanguard is a Kairi, you choose an asset size unit card from your drop and put it to soul. So this lets you rebuild soul by just putting back your ride line basically. And then during your turn, if your Vanguard is an asset size, she gets plus 2k power. This one's also if your Vanguard is a Kairi, lets you put her to soul to give your Vanguard plus 5k for the turn, but the Vanguard's not as important, I guess, compared to your rear guards. So overall, it's like the amount of specifically Kairi supporting cards is not that much, but the Kairi and the grade 2 herself are really, really good considering you have so much old Kairi support. I mean, this is like the original like lyrical boss unit from the trial deck, right? So it's pretty cool to see her finally get a retrain of her grade 3. Then we have the Prizuel. When you attack with her, if this turn your grade 3 or greater Vanguard bounced back one of your rear guards by this ability, you can choose a grade 2 or lower card from your hand and put it to soul to draw 1, and this gets plus 10k. So this works in Kairi, this doesn't work in Artisaria, so keep that in mind. So any bouncing decks, this will use it. And it's like pretty cool because you can set up your soul while drawing cards. So it's kind of like you filter out things you don't need, or if you have a deck that can use the soul for any purposes, then it's also pretty good for that. Getting plus 10k is also very good because it doesn't care about your opponent's grade either. So this double rare is actually like pretty threatening. This is dress up support. So if your Vanguard has a dress up ability, this gets plus 5k. And at the battle of this attacked, you can retire it to look at top 7 for a dress up ability possessing card added to your hand and shuffle your deck. So this is basically like Willista support and like Clarissa support and like all the other dress up cards basically. This is, I think, what was it? Petralka? Back row rearguard circle. Once per turn, when your grade 3 or greater unit attacks from the middle back row column, all of your middle or like front like middle column units get plus 5k, including your Vanguard. And at the end of the battle, this boosted if your grade 3 or greater units attacked a total of 2 or more times this turn. Energy blast 2, put this to bottom deck. Choose a card that is a grade 3 or greater from your drop with a different name than your Vanguard and add it to your hand. Isn't this Pacifica support? I feel like I'm trying to remember. The people definitely talked about this card when it was revealed. Pretty sure that's what Pacifica does. I don't really remember. But it's pretty good. I mean, it's like buff to 2 things, and it also allows you to get back stuff to hand while going, like using energy pretty efficiently. So feels pretty good for a grade 1. So overall, pretty impressive. Flamgram support is also in this set. So we have the support drummer, Edimuridu. So center back row rearguard circle. When she boosts, if your Vanguard's a Flamgram, she gets plus 5k. If your opponent's grade 3 or greater, end of that battle, you can discard 1 card from hand and retire her to choose your Vanguard, and for that turn, you turn its drive into 2. This basically allows you to, when you rewrite into the grade 0 Flamgram, turn that into drive 2, which is honestly pretty good because this doesn't cost CB or anything. It just basically costs a card from hand and retires itself, but you don't really mind that too much for the 2 drive pressure that you have. So this is a good card. This is also Flamgram support that if you have a Flamgram grade 3 greater Vanguard, you retire this to choose a Flamgram normal unit from drop, call it to rear, and if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, also gets plus 5k. So she pops herself to call a Flamgram that basically then like works with the rest of your deck. She doesn't have Flamgram in her own name, but might be used, I'm not too sure. This girl is a grade 1 in the back row. Once per turn, when during your battle phase, you play a card, a rearguard in the same column as her. Energy blast 3 to stand her. So she basically works with like restanding decks. Kind of works with Kaidi, I guess, as well. This order lets you choose a rearguard and says, during the battle phase, if one of your units is placed on rear for that turn, this unit gets plus 5k. So that works every single time you call something. So you can like have a rearguard that watches stuff get played that will then gain power. So a good option would be like literally this card. Like give it to this, and then she will see your other 2 rears get placed, and she'll get plus 10k basically because you played 2. So that's an option. This isn't the order that she searches though, so keep that in mind. This is when it attacks the opponent's Vanguard, combos 1, choose the opponent's rearguard in the front row and move it to Guardian Circle. This is this Shiana support? I don't think so, but it's basically just a little disruption. CB1 is pretty expensive, but I do like what they're doing with it. It's kind of like it disrupts your opponent's board a little bit. This thing is in drop. If outside of the battle phase, a card is put into your order zone, if you don't have this on board, energy blast 4 to call this. Technically it's generic with anything that plays orders. Although Lyrical doesn't have too many cards that play orders. Is this Artisaria support? You don't have the energy for that though. This card is when you guard with it, if this turn you've taken a damage, you Soul Blast 1 to give her 10k shield. It's not really too crazy. When her attack hits, Soul Blast 1, give another unit plus 10k. Cool hit pressure, I guess. And then this is the guard something that isn't an OT trigger unit from drop. This thing is the return something, get 2k. And then this is the only like interesting comment I'd say, which is like a once per turn during your opponent's battle phase. If opponent's rearguard stands, you can almost one soul boss 1 and give that unit minus 5k power for the turn. I wish this worked on Vanguards as well. For now, it's only on rearguards, but overall, I guess Lyrical, reading through the comments, I'm a bit less impressed than I thought I would be. Kyrie's really good, and I feel like Artisaria is really good, but everything else is like, this card's quite good. Everything else, like Flamgram stuff is good. Overall, a lot of the other more generic cards, feels like I'm looking at Dragon Empire a little bit. So I feel like because of Kaede and Artisaria being good decks, I feel like I'll give Lyrical a 4 to 5, but definitely does not impress me as much as Stoicheia did, and not even as much as Dark States did either. And finally, we have Bang Dream. So we'll quickly talk about this and then also talk about the 2 new cards we got from the Master Deck Sets too. I know this video is very long, but I did warn you before we started. So for Bang Dream, we have new MyGO cards as well as the Ave Mujica deck that was also added in this set too. They also, of course, printed the generic triggers for all of the stuff. There's also a OT that basically says that when you check it, you choose 5 normal units from your drop that are all different name and have the same type as your Vanguard and add them to your hand. So basically lets you like get the whole board back. I don't think you're playing this. You're probably just like playing the generic nationless OTs. But let's talk about MyGO first. First things first, we have the new ride line. It's just a consistency boost. It's very nice though. So basically this one says when you ride over this with this grade 2, you get to search your deck for the original grade 3 Tomori, so this one, and also for one of your MyGO song cards, and then the Tomori gets bound, and if you did, then the remaining card, the song, goes to your hand and shuffle your deck. And if you bound the Tomori from hand, then you can draw one too. Sorry, small mistake. You search the order on ride for this one. Also means this is important because you'll see in a second, but the grade 2 says when ridden over by the new grade 3, you can search your deck for a MyGO song, reveal it, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this way you've set up a song for turn 2 and for turn 3. Also again, small mistake. It's not when ridden over, it's when you ride this one. And then the grade 3 says when placed on Vanguard Circle, you search your deck, drop, or your face-up damage zone for a MyGO card that you don't have in the same name in the bind zone. You search for a unit card, bind it, and if you search your deck, you shuffle your deck. If you bound from damage zone, then you put the top card of your deck into your damage. So you'll see why this is happening in a second. And she says, if you have the original, this grade 3 Tomori in your bind zone, then she says that as long as you have one of them in the bind zone, she gets that unit's original act effect, which is the soul boss one to call stuff from bind. So you set up the bind zone and then you can use the effect immediately to call them out. And then if your one is grade 3 or greater, she gets the effect that at the start of the battle phase, if you have each of the MyGO members in your bind zone, then this unit gets plus 5k. So she gets buffed if the whole band is in the bind zone. It doesn't have to be this specific type, it can be the old ones too. So the new Anon says when you call her, count mouse to 1, look at top 5, choose a MyGO that is grade equal to or lower than your Vanguard, reveal, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So that she used to just call them, now she adds the hand, which is also very good, so she can find Persona Ride. And then right front row rearguard circle once per turn at the end of the battle that she boosted, you can bind her or choose a different named Anon from your bind zone and send that to drop to draw a card. So if you bound this one, then you can send her to drop to keep her on board to draw a card, or you can bind her to draw a card. So one or the other, whichever is fine. The new Dana says in the left front row rearguard circle, when she attacks, if you have a different named Dana in your bind zone, then for that turn, you may give her plus 5k. If you did at the end of the turn, she binds herself. Her second effect is when she stood by your song's effect, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, if this turn she hasn't drive checked during this battle yet, then if you're Persona Riding this turn, you can choose a card from hand, discard it, and then choose a Dana from your bind zone that is a different name from her, send it to drop, and she will gain +1 drive. So she will do twin drive actually. Sorry, I said if you didn't drive check yet this turn, if she stood, she drive checks, and then you can basically discard one, and if you're Persona Road, and if you have a copy of her with a different name in the bind zone, you remove that, and then she gets another drive. So she'll drive one no matter what when stood, but then if you can put this or the trigger version of Rana from your bind zone to drop and discard one while Persona Riding, she'll drive twice, which is very good. And you can set this one up just by riding the grade 3, which is also quite good. The new Soyo is when you call her, you bind a MyGO from hand, which sets up for these two. And then you draw 1 and give any unit plus 5k for the turn. And then right back row rearguard circle, once per turn, when she boosts a MyGO, you Soul Blast 1. For that battle, your opponent has to call 2 cards from hand at the same time if they want to guard. And at the end of the turn, if you have a different named Soyo in your bind zone, you put it to the drop. If you didn't, you bind this. So you can kind of see that it's very important to have the Rana and pretty important to have the Anon, not so much the Soyo. She'll just bind herself, and then worst case, you just call her out with your, the Vanguard's effect. And then the new Taki says, when you call her to rear, you can choose a card from a MyGO song card from drop or from your face-up damage zone and put it to soul. And if you chose from damage zone, you put the top card of your deck into your damage. And then in hand and in rearguard circle, when your Vanguard basically would get attacked, she is able to bind herself to give plus 10k. And if you have another copy of Taki with a different name in your bind zone, you can then put that to the drop to give an extra 5k. So basically they work together, but the most important ones to have the other copies are basically the 2 attackers. These 2 I'd say they're not as important, but this one's good because you can guard with this one first as just a 10k and she binds herself. And then you can guard with her after that and she'll be a 15k. So she works with her old version really well. Soya was like the only one I feel like you don't really need the other version too much. Like this was also a pretty good card, but it was mostly just for like the 5k gain, and like this one still does that too. So it's pretty good. It also cycles the card, right? The new songs for MyGO are also pretty nice. The grade 1 basically says that when it's put to rearguard circle, you put it to order zone instead. And in the order zone, once per turn, you can Energy Blast 3 to search your deck or drop for a MyGO unit card that you don't already have in the bind zone. Bind it, and if you search your deck, you shuffle your deck. So this basically allows you to every turn pay 3 energy to set up one of the girls that you want to have that you're going to be putting into the drop. So the deck got a bit more complex, but it's going to be really good because it's very consistent now as well. The new grade 2 one says when you put this to rear, look at top 7, choose a grade 2 or lower MyGO unit card, call it to rear and shuffle your deck. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, your bind zone cards cannot be chosen by your opponent's effect. So that's kind of like anti-shoujo doji, which is pretty good. And then the errata card is the grade 3 one, which basically says that at the end of the battle that your Tomori Vanguard attacked, so whether the new one or the old one, you get to use the effect, which says if you have the original Tomori in your bind zone, then you do the following effects based on what's in your bind zone. So if you have a Soyo, you stand a Soyo. If you have an Anon, you stand an Anon. If you have if you have a copy of one of the girls, you stand one of the girls. So it's as long as you have one of each in the bind zone and one of each in your rear guards, you get to restand all of your rear guards, which is pretty good. It's very similar to the old grade 3 as well. This used to work even if you didn't have the specific grade 3, which meant that you could use it with the Mashiro restanding Vanguard, which allowed for an 8 drive check, 8 attack turn that they had to emergency patch out, which is a pretty funny little piece of trivia. So overall, I do think MyGO is really good. I do think it's a very good deck. It's at first I was kind of scared because it felt like you really needed to have the MyGO triggers, the crit triggers of like especially Rana and Soyo, or sorry, not Soyo, Anon and Rana. But now I feel like it's actually quite easy to set up because of the order and the grade 3 when you write it. So because of that, I feel like you just run like 1 or 2 copies of these and then you just kind of like put them from drop back into the order zone when you need them, and you don't really need the crits too much. So I do feel like MyGO is actually going to be pretty good this time around. I mean, it was really good last time around too, but there is one more deck though, which is of course Ave Mujica. Their songs are really good. I really need to watch the anime. This is basically Messiah, but a little bit different. So Oblivionis is the main Vanguard. So Oblivionis says when she's written over by the grade 2, you search your deck for a grade 1 Ave Mujica song, reveal it, add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. The grade 2 says, when written over by the grade 3, look at top 7 for an Ave Mujica, add it to your hand. The grade 3 says, if this turn you haven't played an order, counterblast 1, search your deck or drop for an Ave Mujica song, and then you play it. If you search your deck, shuffle your deck. And when you're grade 3 or lower, Ave Mujica rearguard attacks or boosts at the end of that battle, you lock it. And once per turn, when this unit attacks, if you've played a Ave Mujica song order this turn, you can unlock all of your locked cards. So it's literally Messiah. She locks all of your attacks, and then when she attacks, she unlocks all of them. So literally Messiah. The Amoris, her voice actress, has been very popular recently on Twitter, says that on your left back or rearguard circle or in the Guardian circle, if your Vanguard is an Ave Mujica, this unit gets plus 5k power, plus 5k shield. And in your left back or rearguard circle, when she is unlocked during your battle phase, you can counterblast 1 and choose an opponent's rearguard and retire it. Not too bad. CB1 for retire is pretty good. The Timoris says once per turn, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, Energy Blast 3, and then search your drop or bind zone for a different named grade 3 or lower unit card call it to rear, and if your Vanguard's an Ave Mujica, you can then keep her. But if your Vanguard isn't Ave Mujica, then you retire her. So this, as you can tell from the wording, could work in MyGO or even, I mean, Morphonica as well, but then she'll retire. Her other effect is in the right back row rearguard circle. If she's unlocked during your battle phase, Soul Blast 2, countercharge 1, and if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, for that turn, she gets plus 5k power. So you have a CB1 to retire, and you have a countercharge 1 that also gets a little bit of power. Then we have the Mortis. So she says, when placed on rear during your main phase, if your Vanguard's an Ave Mujica, can almost 1, look at top 5, find an Ave Mujica, reveal it, add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. Left front row rearguard circle. When this is unlocked for that turn, you, the player, get the effect that all of your front row Ave Mujica rearguards get plus 5k power, and if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, then all of your back row Ave Mujica rearguards get plus 5k power too. So you have power, you have retire, you have CC. What does this one do? This also top 5 add something, which is also pretty good. Dorodis says, when placed during main phase to rear, you look at top 5, choose 1, discard it, and shuffle your deck. So you can discard anything. It's a bit of deck thin. And right front row rearguard circle, when she attacks, if this turn she was unlocked, you can almost 1 draw 1, and if you have 4 more damage, instead of drawing 1, she drive checks. So in theory, this deck is like, okay, not too bad. It's like you are doing 5 attacks, but the thing is that so far the only power gainer is like she gives herself power. She gets a bit of power. This gives power to everything, and then this draws a card. You have like, this also lets you search, but overall the sentiment I've seen from people for this deck is like, it doesn't plus as much. Let's take a look at the orders and also the alternative 2 cards here as well real quick. So the orders, the songs here, we have Kill Kiss, which when placed on rear looks at top 5, finds an Ave Mujica, reveals it, adds it to your hand, and shuffles your deck. Okay, we got plussing. I love the art of this order too. We got Crucifix X. When placed on rear, if your Vanguard is an Ave Mujica, you can choose an Ave Mujica unicard from your drop. If you don't have a rearguard with the same name as that, you call it to rear. And if you have a Vanguard that's grade 3 or greater Ave Mujica, you can discard a card from hand. And then during your end phase, all of your locked cards do not unlock. And at the end of your opponent's next turn, all of your locked cards will unlock instead. So it basically allows you to put this like protection effect on all your cards. So everything doesn't unlock means they're untargetable. It's also like anti-dominate and all that kind of stuff. The only important thing is that don't do this against Messiah because, you know, it unlocks during your opponent's end phase, which, you know what happens when that happens. Then the Sora no Mujica, this is the grade 3 order. It says once per turn, when your lock card is unlocked during your battle phase, you do the following depending on how many Ave Mujicas you've unlocked this turn. If you unlock 2 or more, you give your Vanguard an extra crit for that battle. And if you unlock 4 or more, then if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, you choose your Vanguard and give it an extra drive. So I feel like on turn 1, you'll sing Kill Kiss. On turn 2, I guess you just call something and then maybe do the protection effect, but then you'll definitely want to be just like using this one to have that extra crit and drive, to have that extra pressure. And then Imprisoned 12 is like an alternative one. So this one basically only works with the Oblivionis Vanguard. So let's talk about that because it's kind of like its own thing. So this grade 2 says you can play 16 of it in your deck. And then depending on how many Mortis and like Watashi is like the reading of this kanji in your bind zone, this gets the following effects. If you have 2 or more, this gets boost. If you have 4 or more, this gets to intercept in the back row and gets plus 5k shield. And if you have 6 or more, for that turn, this gets plus 10k power. And then this Mortis is a grade 4 that you can only ride by the effect of the Imprisoned 12 order. And it says Vanguard rearguard circle during your turn if your opponent is grade 3 or greater. If you have 1 or more of the Watashi or Mortis in your bind zone, this unit gets plus 5k. If you have 3 or more, this gets plus 15k. And then at the end of the battle this attack, you can almost 1, choose from rear or your hand 2 cards with Watashi or Mortis in their names and bind them. Stand this for that turn, give it -3 drive. This originally has 3 drive checks. And then if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, she gains a drive back. So she goes from 3 to 1 drives. And then in hand and drop, she says, when your Mortis unit would be unlocked during your battle phase, you can choose your left front row rearguard circle Mortis and bind it. And then you call this card from your hand or drop. And at the end of the turn, you bind it. So basically, this is like a 4th attack or 5th attack because of the restanding Vanguard. So it's really not too bad. Let's just quickly read the order as well, the Imprisoned 12. So you can only play this if you have the Oblivion's Vanguard. So when this is put to rear, you search your deck for the grade 4 and ride it, and then you shuffle your deck. If you did, you put this in the order zone, and then you retire all of your rearguards that aren't Mortis or Watashi, and then choose your Vanguard for that turn. Its auto ability costs counterblast 1 less. less. And then notice when it says continuous, you cannot call unit cards that aren't Mortis or Watashi to rearguard circle. And then in order zone, you can almost 1 or energy blast 3 from your drop, choose a Mortis or Watashi, and then basically call it to rear, and that's it. So the Mortis itself is this one. This grade 2 is the Mortis itself. And this is the Watashi basically. So you play 16 of this in the deck, and then you ride into this grade 4, and then you just like swing twice with the Vanguard, and you get 3 rearguard swings, 2 Vanguard swings. It's really not too bad. So either you're playing Messiah or this like interesting like 16 of deck, which is also kind of curious. But yeah, so that's all the Bang Dream stuff. I do feel like, especially the alt arts are really good. I think MyGO is the better one of the two. It really feels like you have a lot of strong cards before already, and everything's really cheap. So it's going to be another good budget deck to recommend. And especially, I mean, Bang Dream is really popular these days, especially if like Ave Mujica, I see people talk about every single week when the new anime stuff comes out. And MyGO is also really well received, and like their songs are good. So honestly speaking, as someone that also likes Bang Dream in general, I'm pretty happy with these collabs overall. And finally, just quickly talk about the Master Deckset Regulus pieces. So we have the Shroud in Darkness, which is the grade 3. This is the insane one that is in the Jeweled one. This says that if you didn't ride from your ride deck this turn, you can pay this without cost, but otherwise can almost want to play it. Choose cards from your drop that add up to the grade of your Vanguard or lower. You choose up to 2 normal units with different names that aren't Sentinels and call them to rear. And if you called 1 or less cards from this effect, you put this to soul. Forget about the soul effect. CB1 to, in most decks, call back a grade 2 and a grade 1 is crazy business. Any deck that has like a Shenri, by the way, or a Sergaon, you will always target that as the grade 1 and then just recall your strongest grade 2. So this means that in Buff Saga, this is call Yugma Shad, call Shenri after restriction list. Also Trick Moon technically if you want to. In a grade 4 deck, you can call 2 grade 2s. You can call your 2 best grade 2s. They just have to be different names. So like in Jeweled even, you can recall the new rock whatever and the Rock Agur as well and stuff like that. This card is so good. It's literally like you had Fire Regulus to help dig for pieces. This is really good for reusing pieces. Imagine in Eva, you use this to just call grade 3 Obscurate or grade 2 Obscurate and the grade 1. If you call grade 3 Obscurate, you get a soul out of this too. This is so damn good. It's insane. You get to reuse any of your on-place effects. So just think of any deck that's like, when played, like this can revive your Tith Fault basically. And this counts as not a unit card's ability, so it will proc as well. And if you didn't ride this turn when you play this, you don't even pay CB for it, which is so good. The biggest problem is that this is in a limited production master deck set, which is really annoying because if they don't reprint this in Festival Booster immediately, it's just going to be a $50 Regulus piece. And it's really not cool because this card is crazy good. Like they waited so long to reveal this, so if you didn't pre-order it, it's really hard to get, so it just feels kind of lame in general. So please, Bushiroad, print this in Festival Booster. It's such a good card. Like it just feels like a shame to not have it. And then we have the new Blitz Order. It's a grade 2 Regulus piece. This one is in the Urara Master Deck set, which I think is also quite good. So you can play this regardless of its grade if your Vanguard's grade is lower than your opponent's. And you choose one of your attack units, give it plus 15 for that battle. And if then you choose one of your opponent's units, give it minus 5k for the turn. And if your opponent is Persona riding, then you give it minus 10k for the turn instead. This lets you also target your opponent's Vanguard too. So for example, like in Varga, this is like a minus 10k for like on their Dasetsu turn for their entire turn, which is pretty good. I personally really like this one. It's definitely the cheaper one of the two, and it's definitely the least powerful of the two, but it's still a very good defensive Blitz Order. So for that reason, I still think it's very good. It might not be as good as Twin Cast because that one doubles in for 2 different attacks, but I think it's still a very good Regulus piece. But between the two, this one's definitely the winner. All right, and that is it. Finally, a very long first impressions this time around. I feel like there was a lot to talk about, and overall the sets are pretty good. I didn't give a rating for the MyGO stuff, but it's just collab stuff, so I don't really feel right about giving it a rating. Overall, it feels like the power level of the meta has now kind of like stabilized because Buff Saga got restricted and like Sergon got removed from Rezel and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be a very exciting first weekend or two as the meta gets figured out and we see what really is strong and what maybe was a bit overhyped and whatnot. I think Youthberg is definitely the deck that's facing that challenge the most in terms of like having a lot of hype going for itself, but whether it will live up to it is a big question. Magnolia, I feel like we'll definitely see quite a lot of use just because I feel like a lot of the cards are quite good. So overall, I think that we're in for a very interesting meta. I do kind of wish this was the world's meta set because it feels like it's going to be a very diverse meta just because so many decks are at a very similar power level. Whereas the previous set, it felt like that at first, but then Buff Saga just like overtook everything and became the one and only tier 0 deck for you know, quite a long time. It only was like basically last week and a half that it got restricted and ended up being, you know, a bit more in line with everything else. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What are you most excited for about in the set? Of course, English gets it a couple months later, but it's still going to be a very exciting time. And you do get the master deck sets the same time as Japan on release day of the set. So at least in terms of card pool, it will be synced up. I do think that maybe the MyGO and Ave Mujica stuff probably will be delayed. Maybe you'll get the Morphonica stuff in this set. Who knows? I really hope so, but we'll see. I think the Bang Dream stuff would make sense to release that as soon as possible. But anyway, this video is already long enough as it is. So if you liked it, give it a like. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you want to see any of the decks and cards that we talked about in this video be used, I do make first-person perspective channel member exclusive videos with my first-person perspective fights. So make sure you check those out if you're interested. But with that, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.